In a family, a son has just been born and the mother asks Malaria to hug him. The girl, in turn, is afraid of hurting him, so the mother asks her to hold him in her arms. This is because from now on, he is the newest member of the family, and the mother hopes that Malaria can take good care of him. This story is about a man who never stopped trying and who, one day, was presented as the winner of the Mangaka of the Year award. Kamishiro Akira was the writer of Revenge Match. With more than 50 million copies sold and fame became something normal. At 18 years old, his debut took place and his first manga sold 1 million copies, even receiving a movie adaptation. Being called the author of the century during his journey, the boy became increasingly arrogant with his assistant, with his friends, and even with his girlfriend, who abandoned him. However, he never regretted anything and always thought he was successful because he was right. Obviously, the writer was wrong, but until then, this thought had never crossed his mind. Until Kamishiro was diagnosed by a doctor with polycythemia, a disease where blood cells grow and interfere with circulation. In other words, the writer now had a lethal blood disease. Logically, this was a terrible day, and although there was a chance of recovery, most people only lived for another 10 years. So it was on the road where the boy collapsed because such a diagnosis was terrifying for a 29-year-old. After the consultation, the nurse informed him about the necessary procedure for the tests and asked the boy to bring his family on the next visit. Kamishiro had realized long ago but was denying the fact that he was completely alone. At the moment, he had a mother, but she only thought about money, and the rest of the people who cared had left. In the end, the writer realized that he had been wrong the entire time, with his ideals captivated by superficial success, which made his life empty. During this mental collapse, the boy's phone rang, and upon answering, it was his mother saying she had a problem. Once again, the call was about money, and now the woman was asking for $100,000 for a simple rent. Grinding his teeth in anger, the son informed her that he was at the hospital, and when asked why, Kamishiro responded, crying that he was sick and could only live for a few more years. Naturally, the mother responded, seemingly concerned, so the terrified writer asked her to accompany him to the hospital. She agreed, but without even waiting a second, she asked for the rent money again. Even in moments like this, the boy's mother was more worried about money than about her only family. So Kamishiro simply stopped listening and unleashed all his accumulated anger on his mother while speeding the car. Unfortunately, a family with innocent people was crossing the street, and to avoid an accident, he made a risky maneuver. In the past, things weren't like this because his motivation to become a writer came from the manga his mother brought him. Remembering this feeling, Kamishiro realized that having a peaceful place like that was the only thing he truly wanted. And ironically, he only managed to find that again when he died. But at that moment, Kamishiro wakes up, confused, with no time to rest in the afterlife. From what he remembers, he crashed into an electricity pole, and he's worried about whether the mother and child are safe. However, a system window appears saying the boy's life has ended and asking him to choose a new mother. Obviously, something like this leaves the boy quite confused, but soon a panel appears with 5 options for reincarnation. Among them, Ursula Stormheim can bring the life of a noble. On the other hand, Meltoria Veneris offers the life of a millionaire. Meanwhile, Fatima Yggdrasil offers the life of an immortal, and the protagonist starts to understand that he has to choose one. As he adapts, Kamishiro finds it interesting that reincarnation in another world truly exists, and to avoid blaming his parents again, they're even letting him choose. Looking at the options, Kage Gardenberg is a saintly aristocrat of the sword, so the boy realizes that all the candidates offer many benefits. Thus, it becomes clear that if he chooses one of these mothers, wealth and fame will be guaranteed from the start. However, an easy life with guaranteed success is not something Kamishiro desires. That's why the protagonist shouts, saying he's had enough of these games, because in the past, all he gained from fame was loneliness. So now that he is finally free from that life, he doesn't want to enter a similar one again. As if in direct response to his requests, a candidate from a commoner background appears, offering the life of the son of a magic shop owner. Faced with this, the hero thinks this might be the answer to his problems, and the mother in question is Diva Roland. Kamishiro can't quite recall her description, but she has a kind smile. To the boy, it seemed like she was welcoming him, so Kamishiro decided to choose her as his mother. As the relationship between his parents develops, the boy thinks about how love is formed. But more than anything, he is grateful to have his second chance to be born. 7 years later, in the royal capital of Stormheim, at the Rainford Magic Shop, a deal is made and the customer leaves satisfied. Thus, Diva gives thanks alongside her youngest son, Akira Rainford, who is now 7 years old. After the sale, the mother thanks the boy and tells him he can go play while she takes care of the rest. However, the boy remembered that his father asked him to take care of her, so he insisted on staying by her side. Because of this, Diva can't hold back her emotions and hugs Akira tightly, calling him adorable. Moreover, as the child is showing so much love, Diva promises to return it in double. At the moment, the protagonist still has memories of his previous life, where he destroyed everything in pursuit of success. But at that moment, Carl Rainford, Akira's father, arrives, showering the boy with affection. That's why Akira wants to make sure he doesn't stand out and remains mediocre. Because even if he doesn't strive for great things, he still has a family that loves him. In the end, that's what he's really looking for. Just a little space in the world, which are the only things one cannot afford to lose. Changing the subject, his father announces that he brought a cake, making the boy happy, though he quickly remembers he isn't allowed to eat sweets. This is because there's an obstacle in the house that prevents Akira's happiness: maid. The maid is very strict about not allowing sweets before dinner to avoid spoiling the boy, and since he hasn't had his swordsmanship lesson for the day, she takes him outside to practice. Since the boy hasn't grasped the basics yet, the maid calls him stupid, which makes Akira yell, saying a 7-year-old child isn't that strong. Regardless, the girl continues and becomes disappointed that the boy also has no talent for magic. Definitely, Aria is an obstacle in the perfect life of the ex-writer, but she's the maid who has lived with them since she was born. So far, Akira knows nothing about her except that she is an elf of unknown origin and excellent at everything she does, from magic to household chores. Back at training, Aria orders Akira to stand up and try again, warning him he won't eat cake if he doesn't. She continues to mistreat the boy, who starts wondering why she hates him. Akira is almost certain that this woman likes his father, Carl. From her point of view, his existence is proof of the love between the man she likes and another woman. That's why the boy thinks she gets irritated every time she sees him, but he plans to change that when he grows up. Akira is determined to expose the true nature of this elf, and after that, kick her out of the house. Observing the strange behavior of the protagonist, Aria hits him again, announcing that the next lesson is about magic. She instructs Akira to write beginner-level healing spells on all 5 scrolls by tomorrow morning. This is because someone without mana must get used to making scrolls, and if he fails, he won't get food. Later, Akira lies down with all the blank scrolls. A scroll is a typical item in this world where magical power can be embedded, and a sorcerer writes the spell on it, leaving it stored. Unfortunately, writing one will take 2 hours, and completing 5 will keep him up all night. However, Akira won't let Aria get what she wants because he'll use his cheat ability. Even without any talent in swords or magic, the protagonist wanted to help his father and became obsessed with scrolls. Until one day he discovered a trick, because even simple spells normally take 2 hours to write in full. However, Akira can achieve the effect of any magic he wants as long as he can draw how it looks. Thus, it is possible to achieve the same effect as written scrolls by drawing instead of writing. So even with little magical power, all 5 scrolls will be ready in 10 minutes. And because he has effective magic for drawing, the protagonist thinks he should be able to create even more incredible things. On another day, the boy's parents are amazed to find a slime, and the maid quickly finishes it off. This had only been a coincidence because Akira accidentally summoned a monster. Since he could do things with scrolls, he decided to test it in an open space beforehand. Akira drew a blank magic circle on the surface of the lake's water and then drew the monster, causing it to materialize. In fact, it's not possible to materialize from a scroll, but it is possible from the magic circle he created. It was like summoning magic, which, even though he doesn't fully understand it, is an incredible trick. The power to revolutionize through drawing came into this world as a legacy from his past, and having such an unusual talent, Akira thinks there might be a price to pay. This is because he is already tired of having so many talents, so he decides to hide this ability. Later, the maid can't believe the scrolls were obtained through cheating. She commands that he make one in front of her, and Carl asks Akira if he hasn't done his homework. However, the issue was that he had done it but finished too early. The previous day, the boy went to bed early, so Aria asks when he did it, and the hero responds that he woke up early to work. Still, this excuse doesn't convince her because it's still morning, and the only thing she can think of is that Akira got pre-made scrolls. Aria says she doesn't blame the boy for lacking ability but won't forgive him for lying. She asks again, making the boy remember the times he was pressured at work. With great resentment, Akira asks if he can't cheat a little or work less, realizing that his hellish life might be about to return. He cried and ran off, shouting that someone like Aria should leave. Later, the protagonist goes to the lake he always visits when he's sad. He feels a bit better after shouting there, but starts thinking about what excuse he can come up with. In any case, Akira realizes it's the first time he's seen Aria in this way and believes he should go back to apologize. However, at that moment, the maid herself appears, saving the boy from a deadly attack. After rolling on the ground and escaping, the hero is frightened because Aria, unfortunately, got hurt. The reason for this was that in front of them stood a giant monster known as the Rogue Basilisk Dragon of the Forest. To save Akira from the next attack, the maid throws herself in front of him again, telling him to run. But to her misfortune, Aria is caught by her hair, and she warns that the dragon needs food. So while she will serve as a distraction, she orders Akira to escape, but the hero cannot understand this action. To him, the maid is someone who deeply hates him, but Aria says that's ridiculous. Because the protagonist is part of her family, and it's only natural to want to protect him. She told the boy to run again, and Akira realized he had been acting like a jerk this whole time. Now the protagonist remembers his parents' disappointed faces, making him understand that Aria is not like the editors from his previous job. Naturally, it was true she had been strict, but she had spent all this time protecting him. Back in reality, Aria shouts at Akira to run, but the protagonist doesn't retreat, making her question what he's doing. Then our hero announces that he won't back down because he has decided to protect his peaceful place, and now Aria is part of that. With that, Akira creates a blank square on the river, leaving the maid confused. Now with the canvas created, the hero thinks about what he should do to overcome this situation. Facing a basilisk dragon, he decides to materialize a copy of it. From his completed drawing emerges an identical monster of the same size, and Area quickly realizes its summoning magic. The summoning quickly fulfills its role, neutralizing the monster, but due to the lack of magical power, the hero starts to lose consciousness. However, the boy focuses to keep himself standing because compared to the hell of his past life, this is much easier. Using all of his willpower, Akira shouts that this is the spirit of a professional and commands his summoning to tear the monster in half. Thus, the protagonist manages to win and save Area, but his mana is completely drained. For now, as the summoning and the monster vanish, Area begins to rise from the river. As if nothing had happened, she starts thinking that it was obvious. With Carl's blood, the boy would have something special. But she never expected to find such a great power hidden inside him. Now it's Aria's turn to save Akira, and holding him in her arms, she becomes deeply thoughtful. The next day, Diva cries, thanking God that her son is awake. It's revealed that the boy was in a coma for 3 days due to mana exhaustion caused by a drain bat, a bat that drains magic. Because of this, his mother was incredibly worried, but Diva said Carl would take care of it. Akira, on the other hand, is happy that Area is safe and thinks the drain bat might actually be the maid hiding her abilities. Since he lost consciousness, Carl forced the boy to drink an elixir, which is said to be a super rare item that few people obtain in their lifetime. Additionally, Diva hadn't slept for 3 days and everyone helps, so Area says Akira must be grateful. In this case, the hero feels a bit bad for worrying everyone because of his selfishness, even after promising to be a good son. At this moment, Carl appears, frantic, saying he can't find the drain bat. But upon realizing Akira has regained consciousness, everything improves and seeing the boy is fine, Carl starts losing his strength, until he faints while standing, having spent so much time searching without resting. By nightfall, Akira reflects on MPO, which is when total magical power reaches 0, causing a person to die comparable to dying of starvation. He's grateful to have been saved thanks to the elixir and his mother. But as he's in great pain, Area appears in her nightclothes to help the boy sleep. Analyzing the situation, the maid notices that the boy is having issues with his magic circulation. But as his face turns very red, she says she'll call Diva, which Akira immediately begs her not to do. They get a bit flustered, saying they're not embarrassed, though it's because of her ample assets, leaving the girl confused. Still, Akira doesn't want to worry his mother after she hasn't slept for 3 days, so Area decides to help. She explains that the elixir not only regenerates magic, but also increases reserves, so she'll help Akira's body adjust. With all this care, Akira finds it strange that his heart is beating faster, and now he begins to see the maid differently, feeling very relaxed with her warmth. Because of this, he apologizes and decides to address the topic of her liking his father. Akira admitted he didn't want to acknowledge her feelings and even tried to embarrass her in front of his father. Therefore, he truly apologizes and asks for forgiveness. However, unexpectedly, Area says she never even thought of being Carl's wife. Hearing this, the hero begins listing all the moments she gave indications, but the girl keeps denying it, saying it's a misunderstanding. Instead of Carl, however, the maid was thinking of being Akira's wife. Since Carl is an incredible and respected mage, he wouldn't want an imperfect woman, but if it's Akira, a rare summoner, everyone in the world would want him. And not just that, at only 7 years old, he managed to summon Basilisk, something completely unique. Over time, the maid doesn't know how strong Akira will become, or if she'll even be able to help because it's like a power bestowed by God. Therefore, Area feels she's definitely not fit to raise someone so grand. Once again, people are placing expectations on the hero, and if things continue like this, Akira fears his secret will be discovered. So the maid asks why this power has been hidden all this time. Summoners are extremely rare beings treated as nobles by the king and can secure immense fame and wealth. But that obviously comes at a price, and Akira thinks this is his chance to explain. With sincerity, he says he doesn't want to be separated from his father and mother because of his power, and that his dream is to take over the shop when he grows up, not become a royal summoner. With a shout, the hero says he wants to inherit the shop at all costs and begs the maid not to tell anyone. However, she warns that she will have to talk to Carl. This is because the boy is just a child and his future is something his parents must decide. Additionally, as a maid, she cannot keep secrets, but if she becomes Akira's wife, her partner's wishes will become her priority. Even though it's a bit late to ask, the hero questions what it means to be his wife, and Area explains that it's something like being a companion of destiny, someone who will always stay by his side, protecting him. Obviously, Akira interprets this as marriage and as a proposal designed for him to reject. However, the boy thinks he won't fall for these games and shouts that when he becomes an adult, he will marry Area. This makes the elf extremely embarrassed, and the hero believes he's misunderstood the situation again. But she says she doesn't mind, so with her mission accomplished, the two promise with a pinky swear to marry when he becomes an adult. And in the meantime, the secret will be kept from both Carl and Diva. The next day, the maid decides to examine his summoning abilities. It is said that every summoner always forms contracts with their summons, making her wonder how Akira summoned the Basilisk. This is because a strong monster wouldn't follow someone of a low level, so the hero asks what a contract is, and she tells him to stop joking. However, Akira really did summon without a contract and demonstrates the drawn technique he used by summoning a slime in front of her. In this case, Arya says she'll help with his magic and asks him to summon a monster from a book. This is an advanced golem extremely difficult to summon because of its resistance to magical power. Even without contracts, it should still be impossible, but recalling his days as a mangaka, Akira makes a sketch. He explains that if they draft it first, the chances of success are higher and asks for magical energy. Thus, mimicking the same motion as when he summoned the basilisk, the advanced golem appears, leaving Arya completely shocked at what she's seeing and making her think Akira is something beyond a genius, capable of challenging the world's laws. After completing the summoning, the hero happily thanks her, but the maid's expression is serious, making him think his secret has been exposed. However, Arya was just too stunned to say how many dangers this power could bring. So, until he fully understands his abilities, Arya begs him not to show this to anyone. Akira agrees, thinking everything turned out better than expected. But not everything is perfect because the training resumes. As he takes a beating, the hero asks why she's doing this since she now knows about his aptitude for magic. He questions why he's still training with swords, but Arya reminds him they promised to pretend nothing happened. Thus, the hellish training continues, and after taking a lot of hits, Akira complains because the training is much harder than usual. He's happy his secret will be kept but hopes he can stay alive. Anyway, the boy prefers not to feel pain, so he draws an elixir on a scroll that, when used, restores HP and MP and increases mana reserves. The elixir is a potion considered almost mythical because besides fully restoring someone, it increases their reserves. A normal person is extremely lucky to find even one in their lifetime, but Akira can create as many as he wants. This even reminded Akira of the energy drinks he used to consume, but he was curious about the increased reserves since he hasn't noticed any changes yet. To test it, the boy attacks a tree trunk with his sword, but the result is pathetic. Once again, the trunk doesn't break, and it seems that sword skills are related to magic. At this point, someone appears, asking if this weakling can't even cut the trunk, and more than that, she questions what he did with the scroll. Naturally, Akira is very startled because he didn't even notice the girl approaching. But that's not the biggest problem, as it seems she saw his summoning. With a smile, the girl says it's the first time she's seen such a technique and asks if the little boy is a mage. Apparently, the girl is an aristocrat, which among all things is the most problematic. To explain himself, the boy says he just used a simple recovery spell. Moreover, since she's also a child, he tells her not to call him little boy. In response, the noble laughs a lot at his manner of speaking, which resembles an old man, and managing to change the subject, Akira keeps the conversation going. The hero asks how old the girl is, and she replies that she's 7 years old. Since they are the same age, Akira shouts, scolding the girl for harassing commoners. However, this was a misunderstanding due to her height, and she apologizes if she somehow offended him. In this case, the hero realizes she is an aristocrat with good manners and also apologizes for getting too carried away. In the end, the two reconcile and the girl asks if Akira would like help with the firewood, but he believes that such work isn't suitable for a noble. Moreover, this isn't a simple task, but rather part of his swordsmanship training. However, the girl comments that this is even more reason for her to get involved, because in the first place, a sword is different from an axe as its center of gravity is near the hilt. She can't explain it properly in words, so she asks Akira to throw the log to her, and though confused, he obeys. With a quick step, the girl moves and cuts the log in half in a motion resembling a dance that the hero can't even follow. This is a sword dance even Arya can't perform, so Akira thinks the girl is a master. Despite being a girl, the hero is amazed at her skill, which makes her even more interested in him. However, since she hasn't introduced herself yet, the noble reveals her name is Metis Blinsterd, the son of Count Blinsterd, who became the Lord of Stormheim. Hearing this, the hero thinks that since he's not familiar with the area, it might be good to have someone to show him around the city. However, learning that the girl is actually a boy leaves Akira shocked. He apologizes for treating Metis as a girl, using the excuse that he's very cute, which makes Metis even more interested in him. Regardless, the Count's son asks the hero to introduce himself as well, so Akira says he's the son of the owner of the Rainford magic shop. Hearing that the son of a magic shop owner is practicing swordsmanship, Metis is impressed. But the hero is still bothered by the fact that he mistook the noble's gender. In response, Metis playfully slaps him, saying not to worry because he misjudged Akira at first too. He extends his hand, declaring Akira as the first friend he's made in the city. Akira shakes his hand, thinking the aristocrats in this world are more decent than expected. In any case, Metis suggests they meet tomorrow at the same time, offering to teach swordsmanship, while Akira shares knowledge about the city. A few days later, during a bath with the protagonist, Arya asks if what Diva said about him not being able to count to 100 is true. Unexpectedly, the hero simply replies that he doesn't want to be treated like a child anymore. He then asks how much longer they will continue bathing together, to which Arya responds that it's common practice to save firewood. Changing the subject, Arya mentions that Diva will be joining them soon, prompting Akira to say he'll leave. As Ariel also gets up, the hero insists that he can wash himself. Switching topics, the maid asks if Akira has been reading the book she gave him, reminding the hero of a question he wanted to ask. The book states that it's impossible to summon inorganic substances, so Arya explains that it's obviously because contracts cannot be made with non-living beings. However, Akira has already managed to summon an elixir, making this ability even more problematic if it's discovered. Regardless, Arya asks if the book has been useful, and he replies that it has, as it contains detailed explanations of many monsters to summon. Still, Arya reminds him that the book was given to explore his power together, not to summon alone, because attempting a high-level summoning without sufficient mana could lead to death. Therefore, she asks him to promise not to summon unless he has the magic of a legendary hero, which leaves him confused. It is said that the goddess gave birth to a human designed for war with the best magic and swordsmanship, referred to as the God of War. He possesses red eyes, a symbol of the night goddess, and is considered the strongest human alive. Since Akira is also a boy, Arya asks if he wishes to be someone like that, but he reaffirms his dream of becoming the second generation of the magic shop. At that moment, the protagonist's mother arrives, apologizing for being late, leaving him embarrassed. She also asks if he has learned to count to 100 yet, prompting the boy to run off to get dressed first. Soon after, his father returns home, but after apologizing to Diva for leaving everything to her, she notices something went wrong at the guild. Carl then reveals that the evil cult has started kidnapping children. It's still speculation, but earlier, a man was arrested for kidnapping a child while using the emblem in the cult. Additionally, there are rumors that they use children as sacrifices, and the city's security has also been increased. But as a precaution, Carl asks Akira not to go to isolated places. Later, the hero continues his training with Medes, but as usual, gets beaten. He gives up, knowing he can't even scratch Medes, so the noble suggests taking a look around the city. However, Akira refuses and asks if Medes isn't aware of the evil cult's actions. With that, Akira explains everything, leaving the noble shocked, and thus Akira thinks it's better for them to go home. Medes, however, says he isn't afraid of those people, but Akira admits that he is because he's just a commoner, not learning swordsmanship to take such risks. In response, the noble seriously questions whether Akira truly means that. He explains that his teacher said strong people bear great responsibilities. If Akira isn't ready to take responsibility for others, then there's no reason to learn swordsmanship. The hero, recalling his past, compares Medes' teacher to the idiots at his previous job. He then asks Medes if he knows what happens when talented people get lost like this, because when that happens, it's all for nothing. Suddenly, the admiration fades, and Medes decides to go home first, leaving Akira to realize he upset him. Akira understands that he was too harsh on a child, but things start to become clearer. Then a sweet smell fills the air, accompanied by a strange drowsiness. The protagonist remembers the advice not to go to isolated places and to practice swordsmanship closer to home. However, after some time, he wakes up alongside Medes in a cell as prisoners. Noticing the crying children and the iron bars, Akira recalls that the evil cult uses children as sacrifices. That's when he realizes they have unfortunately been kidnapped by the cult. Meanwhile, Medes starts waking up slowly and asks why Akira is in his bed, but he quickly realizes they aren't at home and asks where they are and who the children are. In response, Akira tells him to keep his voice down and explains they were probably kidnapped by the cult. If this is the cult's hideout, Akira wonders if he should summon a golem, but there's a risk of being buried alive, and he promises not to use his powers. Of course, he wants to keep his abilities hidden, but this is a life or death situation, so it might be worth disguising it as a summoning spell. Medes, now understanding the situation, unexpectedly declares they'll destroy the place and save the children. In response, Akira warns that this is reality and that their weapons were confiscated. However, Medes doesn't need a sword to summon his burning pain flame magic. Unexpectedly, the boy has mastered not only swordsmanship, but also magic. At that moment, Medes assures Akira not to worry because he will protect him. Demonstrating glowing red eyes, the noble declares that he will teach Akira about the responsibility of the powerful. This reminds Akira of what Arius said about humans with red eyes. He hadn't expected Medes to possibly be one of the legendary heroes. Combining mastery in swords and magic with his red eyes, the being is known as the God of War or a hero. Medes' left eye glows a radiant red, and his abilities leave no doubt. This becomes an unexpected trump card, and Akira thinks that perhaps he won't need to summon the golem. With the most powerful being present, they might escape if they rely on Medes. Using his fire magic, Medes melts the bars like candles, and Akira praises him, saying he's no ordinary noble. The admiration returns as Medes reaffirms that he will protect Akira. Afterward, they prepare to run and save the prisoners. But as they exit, two cultists appear, questioning how the children got out of the cell. In this situation, Medes tells Akira to stay behind him while the cultists prepare a powerful combined fire spell. However, Medes counters it with a pillar of the same element, surprising the cultists. Next, the noble charges forward, jumping and demonstrating that, in addition to being skilled in magic, he is also incredibly fast. At the last moment, the villains realize the origin of his red eyes, but it's already too late. Obviously, the protagonist is stunned by this incredible strength, achieved without weapons, and now it's clear they will be able to escape. Therefore, Akira comments that it's no surprise Metis was so confident, and the noble tells him to keep moving forward, to which Akira agrees. However, while the protagonist shouts for them to head toward the exit, Metis shouts to go defeat the leader, causing a disagreement between the two. At the same time, back at the Rainford residence, Akira's mother is devastated and Arya tries to console her, explaining that a team is already searching for him. Still, Deva becomes even more distressed because if the guards are involved, it means the situation is serious. Through tears, she asks what will happen if her son has been captured or if he is already lost. Because if something happens to Akira, she won't be able to go on living. Arya reassures her, saying everything will be fine and asking Diva to trust Akira because he's wiser than she realizes. To the maid, there's no doubt that the boy will return safely. Back in the prison, Metis asks if he heard correctly that they would just escape. But Akira knows they can't do something reckless like confronting the leader, especially when they don't even know the layout of the hideout. He acknowledges Metis' strength, but points out that they are completely in the dark. So blindly attacking the enemies is a risk, and escaping first to call for help is the best option. In response, Metis becomes serious and asks if Akira really means that. Because if they escape and call for reinforcements, the two of them will be safe, but the captured children won't be. By the time help arrives, the cultists will have destroyed the evidence rather than leaving the children behind. Metis asks one last time if Akira truly plans to escape. In his thoughts, Akira realizes he can't entirely refute the noble. In fact, he even agrees with him because with his drawings and Metis' power, they might actually win, which makes Metis happy. However, the protagonist warns that if they challenge the cult and lose, not only will the captured children die, but so will the two of them. In a deeper part of the hideout, the cultists are performing a ritual, commenting on how pure the children's souls are. The one who appears to be the leader cruelly states that it's thrilling to see the light of life, which should last decades, exchanged in such a way. And every time she sees it, it makes her shiver with pleasure. Faced with their conflicting ideas, Metis declares that he doesn't mind sacrificing his life for what he believes in, but he agrees that Akira has a point. Still, since he doesn't want others to be endangered, Metis tells Akira to escape while he takes care of the cult alone, leaving Akira desperate. With no choice, the hero follows his companion to the cult's altar, where they spot the exit. Apparently, they are inside a limestone cave on the northern coast, not far from the city. However, the place gives off an ominous feeling because of the statue and the altar. Suddenly, Metis forces Akira's head down as a group of cultists passes by carrying children. Seeing this, the hero thinks they should hurry, but when he looks at Metis, the noble is barely able to contain his rage. That's why Metis shouts at the evil people to stop and repent before the goddess, so she won't have to judge them now. Obviously, the hero panics because provoking them won't help, but to make matters worse, the leader from before appears behind them. With a hint of mockery, she asks why the cute little kittens look so serious. But Metis reacts quickly with a pre-activated spell, launching a fire attack that pushes them away. This is a fire spell that doesn't require recitation, piquing the cultist leader's interest. After the explosion, Metis picks up Akira in his arms, and as the embarrassed boy protests, Metis asks him to take care of the children while he fights. When the cultists appear to stop the children, the noble defeats them instantly. Furthermore, he grabs a sword, projecting his aura and revealing his red eyes to the cultist leader. This makes it clear to everyone that he isn't an ordinary opponent, but a hero blessed by the goddess. Yet knowing this doesn't help the cultists, as they are cut down all the same. Naturally, the cultists realize they can't win, so they summon Karame-sama. This makes Metis realize that the girl is truly the leader, and he challenges her to a one-on-one fight. Akira shouts for the noble to reconsider, saying they could simply escape through the exit. But Metis declares that he will never turn his back on the enemy and that he will do this to prove that righteous beliefs always prevail. In response to his motivational statement, Karamis laughs heartily, saying she's moved by such pure hearts. She then asks them to show her more of this true justice and summons a massive magic circle that leaves both boys stunned and Metis terrified. Since the noble not only ignored his friend's advice but also followed his knave sense of justice, this will make him the perfect sacrifice for that person. Therefore, Karamis declares that she will respond with all of her strength to destroy that moral sense. To neutralize both swords and magic, she summons the most feared hero killer, an advanced golem, demonstrating her ability to summon as well. Realizing that the enemy is a summoner, Akira recalls what Arya said about summoners being extremely rare. For this reason, the hero shouts, asking what they're going to do because the enemy is too powerful, but Metis doesn't answer. Despite his fear, Metis still has an excited look on his face, but Akira doesn't think it's possible to defeat something like this. Regardless, the noble announces that there is a way to deal with monsters using magic. However, since the golem isn't affected by fire magic, it means the level must be as high as possible. There's a belief that golems are immune to fire magic, but Metis claims he'll break that belief with Zaid Rea Zaid, the strongest fire spell. Reciting to burn all enemies in the name of his spirit, the large-scale fire magic Phoenix is activated. The spell was undoubtedly incredible, and Metis felt proud, believing he had defeated the monster. However, the golem's fist comes toward the noble, and Karamis laughs hysterically. Even though it was a powerful fire spell, it didn't leave a single scratch. So Karames mocks the result of Metis' efforts. Holding him in her arms, the cultist calls him an insignificant child and says she might forgive him if he apologizes. However, even in this situation, Metis isn't the type to apologize to a heretic. So the hero tries to de-escalate the situation by offering to apologize on behalf of his friend. But Karames simply begins to massacre the child. If Metis had set aside his pride, perhaps he wouldn't be in this situation. However, Akira shouts for her to let Metis go and begs the boy to apologize. But Metis firmly declares he will never apologize to trash like Karames. In response, the cultist continues her lessons in discipline but soon realizes Metis' conviction won't waver. So she warns that she'll teach him how adults handle problematic children, for example, by punishing his friend in his place. As the blow approaches, Karames affirms that Akira's death will be because of Metis. At this moment, the hero begins to think about what he should do to save himself. Suddenly, a shout of apology is heard by everyone. Unexpectedly, Metis apologizes to save his friend, declaring that even if it's just him, he'll do whatever it takes to ensure Akira survives. He cries, admitting that he was arrogant for not wanting to ask for help. Metis then shouts for his friend to escape, promising to apologize as much as Karames wants if she lets Akira go. However, the hero realizes these aren't the tears of someone afraid of death, but of someone with a strong sense of responsibility. If Akira had been like this in his past life, bearing the responsibility of helping others for everyone's success, things would have been different. Instead, to achieve his goals, he always hurt others, believing it was the right path. But Metis was different because he was someone who would proudly give his life to save even an insignificant person. Now Akira understands that this is the true path of a noble. Taking all of this into account, the hero shouts that his friend doesn't need to apologize anymore. He declares that Metis isn't wrong because power isn't something to hurt people as Akira did in his past. Instead, it's something to help others just like Metis does, which is exactly what Akira wants to become. Using the full strength of his magical canvas, Karames notices a square magic circle, and the hero wonders if his magic power will hold out. But first, he decides to save Metis so they can escape and bets everything on the elixirs he's been drinking until now. Thus, Akira decides to surpass the intermediate level and draw an advanced golem. Faced with this summoning magic, the noble can't believe his friend is a summoner, and Karames is stunned that a child possesses such power. Even high-level summoners struggle to summon something like this, yet a child is managing to do so. However, Akira remembers that summoning a high-level being without enough magic could lead to death. At this moment, the feeling of magical insufficiency starts to appear, because even after all those elixirs, Akira is still at the intermediate level. In the past, it was like having the design of his drawing criticized despite all the hard work involved. However, the most common solution was having to redraw with different strategies, such as using fewer lines. But if the design ended up looking different from the original, it would be considered amateurish. One day, Akira's boss asked him to completely redraw his works, saying it was the bare minimum for a professional. This was because character and charm could be emphasized, leaving out excessive detailing. Yet convincing the author is precisely the job of a professional. Unfortunately, of all things, what resurfaced now were the traumatic voices of Akira's boss. But he draws a parallel between the level of detailing and his lack of mana. Since the canvas is his battlefield, he decides to simplify the monster's design while preserving its original characteristics. Suddenly, the summoning light begins to shine, but before it's completed, the cultist golem charges forward to finish off the boy, leaving Metis desperate. However, the protagonist succeeds at the very last second, saving his life by a hair's breadth. Despite being a spur-of-the-moment idea, he managed to recreate something that his magic could handle. For the first time with an advanced golem, Akira displayed the full refinement of his drawing skills with his own design. Being able to summon something like this at the age of 7 was unbelievable, even for Metis. He quickly remembered when Akira underestimated his strength and preferred to escape. All this time, even with so much power, Akira had been cautious, unlike the noble, who now felt like a fool. Still, he felt a bit embarrassed as he realized how incredible his friend could be. Back in the battle, the cultist couldn't believe what she was seeing, saying it was a joke because it's impossible to change a beast's appearance while summoning it. Moreover, the boy's golem was slimmer than usual below the chest. Akira, in turn, admits that the design is a mess because he had to reduce its performance, but it is definitely an advanced golem. This is proven when the monster demonstrates its strength by punching a wall. However, this was all part of a plan, as Metis' safety was the priority, and Arya had warned him that if the summoner falls, the beast will be destroyed. Now the hero's true counterattack begins. If a summoner collapses, they lose control of the beast, and it disappears. At this point, Akira is already running out of magic, meaning the golem will vanish soon. So he executes a strategic move to secure Metis. With the noble freed from the monster's grip and recovered, they try to run and escape. But the enemy golem blocks the exit because the cultist is still alive even after being hit. Akira had failed to defeat her on the first attempt, and now Karames won't make the same mistake. She uses elemental healing, a recovery scroll, and begins summoning the natural enemy of a golem, the divine beast Leviathan. A water monster has an advantage over an earth monster. and this one seems even stronger than the golem. Karameis believes the children underestimated the cultists and begins attacking using the waves from the coast. Fortunately, the protagonist thinks quickly and creates an earthen wall to protect the golem's main body. He then fires a destructive beam, making Karameis realize this truly is an advanced golem. However, the water attacks have the advantage and the monster cannot protect the children because summonings only defend themselves. Faced with all this power, the cultist becomes enraged, refusing to believe that a child could form a contract like this. She demands to know who this child is. With a shout, the hero warns Metis to stay away from the golem, and Karameis responds with a water jet that cuts off the monster's arm. Luckily, Metis falls to safety, but the protagonist's monster was defeated with a single strike. Akira already knew it was weak against water, but now even its beam attack wasn't working due to a barrier. Karameis mocks the situation and Akira starts running out of ideas for a counterattack. He was truly running out of magic and couldn't retaliate or even keep the golem alive. Faced with this, Akira begins to wonder if this will be the end of his life in another world, but he still has a will to fight. It's not uncommon to run out of ideas, but in his past, a hero was always able to come up with something. This is because the real talent of a cartoonist isn't just the ability to draw, but the creativity to never stop thinking. This is the world he created, and designing things his own way is the only solution. Therefore, the hero notices the blank scroll of the cultist on the ground and has the idea to draw an elixir. Meanwhile, the cultist finishes off the protagonist's golem with a burst of water. She screams, declaring her victory, but the protagonist manages to grab the scroll, leaving Karameis confused. However, when he tries to do something, he remembers he can't act because he's out of magic. If he were a real mage, he could use mana infusion abilities. But since he can't perform magic, he can't use those powers. Faced with this, the leader of the cultists calls for the boy to end this fight quickly. With the loudest shout he can muster, Metis urges Akira to flee, saying he's already done everything he could. In a desperate move, the hero throws his scroll toward the noble's hand, asking him to infuse it with magic. Akira is someone who, for some reason, cannot use magic, and that's why he discovered his true gift. By drawing with magical power, he can activate the effects of what's on the scroll, breaking the belief that scrolls are merely for storage. Seizing the opportunity to win, the hero orders his golem to use everything it has. Naturally, the protagonist's summoning is overpowered by the Leviathan. This makes Karameis laugh at the irony of the boy destroying himself after all his speeches. She remarks that he's truly brave, and Akira, holding the infused scroll, agrees. Karameis mocks the protagonist for placing his hopes in an empty item. But this was something only a genius could execute, so Akira ignores the mockery and draws his elixir. With this, his HP and MP are fully restored, along with an increase in his magical capacity. The cultist screams in excitement, asking what he's doing by attempting to draw an item. Metis remains puzzled by the hero's plan, and Karameis shouts that she won't be fooled by such a bluff. In response, Akira decides to prove firsthand that his abilities are real by summoning once more. This time, the boy summons an advanced fire golem with his original design. Karameis had never seen anything like it in her life, as to defeat a water monster, the boy transformed an earth monster into a fire one. Without wasting time, the new summoning attacks with firepower, startling Metis because it doesn't make any sense. Everyone is shocked, but Akira doesn't care because he's willing to overflow his magic if necessary to win. Quickly, the golem charges forward, preparing a new attack, and the wind forces Karameis to step back. Akira shouts that he doesn't care what it cost him, and before the cultist can react, an explosion occurs. The sound of the explosion reaches Carl's ears, and he notices the cave on the cliff along with his comrades. Because of this, some send messenger pigeons to alert the army, while Carl becomes anxious, fearing his son might be in danger. Back in the cave, Metis now takes care of his friend as Akira's mana has been drained again. The boy warns that they need to hurry because the enemy might return, but Metis smiles and says that might not be necessary. Akira yells at the noble for being stubborn again. Metis calmly asks if his friend is feeling better, and Akira shouts back saying that he is. To explain that his confidence isn't mere stubbornness, Metis points toward the sea, showing the hero that reinforcements have arrived. Alongside the army are mercenaries and mages, including Akira's father, who is frantic with worry. As the adults approach, Metis asks if his friend plans to reveal who he truly is. With Akira resting on Metis' lap, there's an odd tension between the two. But Akira decides that he can't reveal the truth now, so he asks the noble to keep it a secret, which Metis agrees to. Regardless, Akira admits that he doesn't have the ability to use magic and that he doesn't want fame. Although this explanation doesn't fully convince Metis, he doesn't push for more details, respecting his friend's wishes. Metis sincerely thanks Akira for everything he's done, and even after all this, the adults remain unaware of the existence of this young summoner. Later, the noble explains his convictions, saying that everything he's done so far has been to become a leader who wouldn't shame his people. From studying magic to mastering swordsmanship and earning a scholarship, these were the paths he believed would lead to success. After meeting Akira, the noble realizes that despite thinking he knows a lot, he is also arrogant. However, the hero points out that there are people who never realize this and praises his friend, saying that self-awareness is the hallmark of a kind person. Medes becomes even happier with Akira's companionship. Without wasting time, someone informs them that the carriage for the noble is ready. Although they are sad, the two say their goodbyes. But before leaving, Medes reveals the truth, saying his name is Medesfina Mayan. Obviously, the protagonist doesn't understand what he means, so Medes repeats himself. This is his true name, and the girl decided to reveal it because she now trusts Akira enough. At first, the hero is confused, sensing that somehow the name doesn't seem fitting. But Akira simply bids farewell to Medes, saying they'll meet again the next day, and that he doesn't need to be embarrassed about having a feminine name. This leaves both the guard and the noble thinking of Akira as someone truly slow to understand. In the end, what made the boy happy wasn't becoming friends with a noble, but finding a great person among his adversaries. Even in his past life, this was the first time he met a friend he could respect from the bottom of his heart. Inside the carriage, an elder informs Medes that they received a report from the royal palace with good news while she was undercover. The decoy managed to lure the rebels into a trap, and now preparations can begin for the princess's return to the castle. At this, Medes understands she is no longer the son of the count, and the elder apologizes for making her go through all of this. However, unexpectedly, the girl doesn't complain, saying it was a very enriching experience. The next day, the protagonist wakes up groaning in pain, prompting his mother to rush over and ask what's wrong. The maid appears as well, and upon examining him, she's alarmed as she identifies the problem. Without wasting time, the maid suggests it might be mana exhaustion, as the boy's mana nerves have become clogged from dealing with levels beyond his limits. It's said to be possible to cure this by infusing mana into the nerves, but if they fail, the boy could die. At the moment, the hero is experiencing unbearable pain, but he doesn't care if losing his mana makes him normal again. What matters most to him now is meeting Medes again the next day. Naturally, Akira faints from exhaustion, and his mother stays by his side the entire night. Elsewhere, a woman remarks that such a situation isn't normal, even in a kingdom of magical prowess, and she never expected a little boy to push himself so hard. She declares that Akira is likely a singularity, and not only that, now the end of all things has a pet to care for. As a shadow tasked with maintaining the balance of the world, the woman says that Area cannot hope to raise such a being without drawing the attention of other shadows. However, unexpectedly, the maid states that she has sealed Akira's power, and for that reason, the woman should not dare touch the boy. Because if she does, Area will consider her an enemy. Demonstrating unparalleled power to intimidate, Area causes the woman to step back, slightly shaken, and she assures Area she has no intention of opposing the end. But seeing how far Area is willing to go, the woman asks if this means she will take responsibility for the singularity. Area responds that she doesn't mind, prompting the woman to say she'll take Aria's words seriously before departing. The shadow's name is Meriwaria, and after everything, Area reflects on the burden she has decided to bear by taking care of Akira's power. Regardless, she is determined to continue, especially since she has managed to keep it under control until now and believes she can do so for longer. On a foggy night, as he glimpses a shadow in the moonlight, the boy can't shake the feeling of anxiety, worrying that Medes won't appear. Unfortunately, even after recovering, his fear is confirmed as day after day, the girl never shows up. It was almost as if everything about their meeting had been a mirage, and so the years passed. Elsewhere, a woman reports signs of Odor's activity near the northern cliffs. The guards of the heir to the throne are identifying the most skilled mages to prepare for the next disaster and protect the life of Queen Kaisera Lando Stromheim. Because of this, a request is made to Cashin Mayan to locate her mentor, as to this day, she hasn't met anyone better at summoning than him. Thus, no matter the cost, the order is to ensure he is brought to the royal palace. In the year 698, in the northern region of the Stromheim Kingdom in the world of Altirad, a great army of Odars appeared, destroying people and places. There were sightings of Odars clad in gold, draining the life of other living creatures. And normal monsters turned into new Odars, increasing their numbers to tens of thousands and taking over more than half the kingdom in just 2 weeks. Only the most powerful mages could fight against them, while humans and creatures could only tremble before the wave of destruction. That was until the magic squad of Pennsylvania appeared, bringing even summoner mages with them. Thankfully, with the help of the mages from that region, the kingdom managed to subdue the Odars, and the war came to an end. However, this victory was only achieved after the sword hero Mayan fought thousands of them and died alongside his wife, Celeria, the kingdom's second queen. Today, the people of Stromheim are living in peace. In a certain place, dice are rolled and someone shouts that the goddess's wrath has fallen upon them. This is because, with all of his betting partner's money, a man managed to win 9,000 gold coins. That partner was Akira, and since everything went wrong for the protagonist, the opponent mocked him relentlessly. Later, At a bar, everyone is having fun, and a waitress announces that another beer is on its way. Akira's friend comments that he's not upset about losing more money instead of recovering it. However, he mentions that Akira always gets fixated on random things, which is quite unique about him. This irritates the boy, and he admits he got carried away, but he couldn't ignore his friend begging for a mere 100 gold coins. But just thinking about how he had already lost 1,000 gold coins made the hero furious. Because of this, Akira grabbed his friend by the neck, blaming him for the lost money. However, like a true gambler, his friend increased the debt by trying to recover it. Now the debt stands at 9,000 gold coins, which isn't even worth worrying about anymore. Faced with this, the hero can't believe it because that's half of what the shop earns in an entire year. For some reason, neither of them ever has good luck, which makes Akira's friend reflect. He notes that he's the son of a knight with no talent for the sword, and Akira is the son of a magic shop owner with no magic. In this case, his friend remarks that it would have been better to be born into a peasant family since his brothers are knights at the Northern Great Wall, and he's the only failure. In a story similar to the hero's, he asks if Akira's parents put pressure on him, to which Akira responds that they don't. However, his friend apologizes because he remembers that Akira lost his ability to use weapons due to an accident when he was a child. Thinking it over, he realizes the two are quite different because Akira might have had a talent, but the protagonist himself doesn't care. After all, he was never particularly powerful and only understood scrolls. Additionally, as part of the second generation, he doesn't need to worry about work, tariffs, safety, or marriage taxes. Hearing all this, the waitress can't stay quiet and interrupts their depressing conversation. She says that since they're still young, they should dream bigger, offering her special kitchen service in exchange. Akira's friend asks why Miss Louisa even cares, and she explains that listening to young people is the duty of the older generation. Either way, as someone born in an illegitimate province, Louisa says that a shop owner without skills is enough to be her prince. She then asks Akira if he has already found a wife or if he wants to go on a date, which embarrasses him greatly as he quickly refuses. Thus, his friend asks about himself, but Louisa bluntly says that he won't inherit a shop and that true love doesn't fill empty stomachs. Faced with this, Akira's friend asks why the hero didn't accept the date. Akira replies that she was joking, but his friend believes otherwise, especially since Akira didn't even give her a minute of attention. Unable to think of anything else, his friend asks if Akira plays for the same team, which makes the hero shout at him to shut up and give him back his money. At that moment, Aria appears, saying she came specifically to fetch the protagonist. Seeing this, Akira's friend begins to understand why Louisa got rejected, reasoning that the hero already has an elf maid. However, Akira denies this with all his might, insisting he isn't involved in anything suspicious and demands his money back again. During the walk, the maid informs Akira that a guest has arrived and is waiting inside the house, prompting the protagonist to shout that he'll get the money. However, it turns out to be someone from the royal palace, which only makes the hero even more anxious. On the way home, Akira thinks about Aria because she has cared for him since he was a child and is the only one who knows the secret of his drawings. 8 years ago, the protagonist lost the nerves in his body after being kidnapped, leaving him unable to handle mana on his own. Regardless, as long as he has scrolls, he can use magic with someone's help. Now he's more focused on living a normal life, but suddenly he realizes they're in a popular spot for dates. Confused, Akira asks Aria what's going on because ever since Gath brought it up, he can't stop thinking about it. Aria is part of the hero's family, so he knows he shouldn't look at her that way. However, their hands intertwine, leaving Akira embarrassed. Unexpectedly, the maid simply says it's okay that he can't use magic. After all, despite everything, he's still the same person to her, which makes the hero incredibly happy. Throughout all this time, the maid has supported him unconditionally, even as others around him pity him. A mother would ask her son what he wants for dinner, even if he's a failure. A father would teach his son to study scrolls diligently, even if he can't use magic. No matter how much money he earns, a peaceful and happy life is the one thing he can never have. A life where he doesn't have to face challenges or pain, where he can simply live as himself in a place where he belongs. At this moment, the protagonist's priority is to earn money to pay off his debts. But breaking his expectations, Keisha Mayan appears, asking if she's in the presence of the genius sorcerer summoner Akira Rainford. Obviously, the protagonist is shocked that someone else knows about his abilities. And since the girl is from the royal palace, he starts wondering if he knows her from somewhere. Regardless, she repeats her question and apologizes for making the maid bring him there. In this case, Akira says it's fine but tries to play dumb, asking what a summoner even is. Judging by what she's heard, Keisha realizes words won't be enough and draws her sword to force him to reveal himself. As she demonstrates her power, Akira remembers that this technique is identical to Metis's, although this is the complete version. Not only can it create countless cuts with a single sword swing, but it can also send them in any direction, as it is a technique of the Mayan family. Keisha Mayan, in turn, is the commander of the Royal Knights, holding the title of Saint of the Sword, and is the second daughter of the family. She is also Metis's swordsmanship instructor, which brings back memories for Akira, making him excited. However, he quickly regains his composure and mentions that they haven't seen each other since the incident 8 years ago. Still, the boy asks why she wants to hear about him, saying she must be mistaken about the so-called summoner. Since Katya doesn't respond, the protagonist bids her farewell, but before he leaves, Katya confirms that it was Medes who sent her. The topic is about the special memory they share and the truth about his abilities. Fortunately, Medes only knows about his summoning ability, but as Arya warned, this could ruin the protagonist's peaceful life. In this case, Akira wonders how he could have made such a mistake, but unexpectedly, Katya assures him she's not trying to force anything. With a smile, she simply asks for a few minutes to talk. Later, at a pastry shop, the hero feels suspicious of everything, and naturally, the two place their orders. When Akira orders only tea, Katya asks if he doesn't like sweets, and the hero tries to assure her that it's fine. For some reason, Akira feels as if he's being interrogated, but tries to keep the atmosphere light and avoid raising suspicion. To begin his plan, the hero comments that he never imagined the captain of the knights would be so beautiful. When she doesn't respond, Akira panics. Thankfully, a few seconds later, Katya blushes and tells the boy to say things like that to women his own age. Seeing that his strategy is working, the protagonist insists on complimenting her, leaving both the waitress and the captain visibly flustered. Since the boy is 15 years old, Katya comments that she is closer in age to his parents. At that moment, Akira remembers that this woman was one of the options when he was choosing his reincarnation. He shouts, asking if she's a candidate to be his mother, which leaves her extremely embarrassed and makes her clarify that she's single. Furthermore, she's never been in a relationship, prompting the hero to offer his sincerest apologies. Regardless, this revelation surprises him and he wonders if there are more mother candidates still alive besides his own. It's a fact that if he had chosen her, she could have been his mother, which feels very strange. However, if she had been his mother, she might have been the type to harshly train him. Getting straight to the point, Akira asks the real reason for her visit. Since the conversation has become long-winded, Katya decides to speak openly. What she wants is for the protagonist to join her team on a mission to subdue the flame dragon. To ensure the mission's success, she needs Akira's summoning ability. While the woman waits for his answer, the hero tries to process the story about the dragon. But since she knows about his identity, he feels he should come clean about the truth. Akira explains that he did indeed have summoning magic, but he suffered an accident 8 years ago that caused him to lose that ability. Since then, he hasn't been able to perform even beginner-level magic without help or handle monsters, but the captain doesn't believe him. She says Medes told her that Akira was a genius hiding his abilities from others, someone who wouldn't hesitate to risk his life to save someone in danger. Katya admits she doesn't understand why he's hiding so much, but Akira insists he's not lying and that everyone in the town knows. To ensure there are no excuses, Katya informs him that a mage will provide the mana he needs. As a summoner of golems, his role will be crucial in serving as a shield against the flame dragon. For additional motivation, she offers a reward of 10,000 gold coins. This is a sum that could not only help the protagonist pay off his debt, but also recover what he's lost. Seeing Akira's reaction, the captain realizes he's taken the bait, and with the mana supply arranged, everything is almost ready. Otherwise, Katya says she'll ask his parents why they didn't report his summoner child to the palace, causing Akira to shout for her not to threaten him. However, to Katya, this isn't a threat. It's her duty as a commander to investigate and secure treasures for the country. As expected, she's no ordinary person, and Akira knows he has no choice but to accept the proposal to summon the golem. With a smile, Katya thanks him, saying she feels bad sending him to prison. Without further delay, the two agree to leave tomorrow and meet at the inn. Using the excuse that he doesn't want his parents to know about his financial problems, they agree to keep the proposal a secret. While thinking about the mission, all Akira hopes is that the mage providing the mana will be someone kind. Unfortunately for him, it turns out to be a bratty girl who mocks him for being unable to perform his summoning without assistance. In response, the mage complains loudly to Katya, refusing to believe Akira ever contracted an advanced golem. The captain explains the accident and mentions that it was something he achieved as a child, which only makes the mage more skeptical. Regardless, Katya asks her to trust him, leaving the hero feeling a bit bad about being treated like a child. Wasting no more time, the mage grants him a chance by providing a supply of mana for the summoning. Immediately, the hero summons a golem, but it's not very impressive as it's a low-level one. However, he did this because it was a quick summoning that didn't require time to draw. The mage, on the other hand, can't understand why her mana is being drained so quickly. Since Akira's mana nerves are damaged and the magic doesn't transfer to his reserve, the girl collapses, worrying Katya. The mage explains that the protagonist can't use magic because the transferred mana doesn't enter his body but goes directly to the golem. Anyone who can use magic has a mana reserve, and the size of that reserve determines their magical capacity. Magic is drawn from the mana reserve through the nerves before being cast, but in Akira's case, the mana transfer bypasses his reserve and goes directly to someone or something else. Even though it's not Akira's mana, it should still be stored inside. Additionally, the boy's magic nerves are completely damaged. Thus, the hero is just a useless kid who leaks everything that is injected into him like a broken container. Faced with this, the captain doesn't believe that such a powerful sorceress is out of mana, but the girl explains that it's exactly as she said. Realizing that what Akira said about his nerves is true, Katya asks if the sorceress can heal him. This is because she is Pearl Bryce from Pennsylvania, the greatest magical nation in the world, completely different from Stromheim's mages. In this case, being a prodigy, Keiichi asks if the girl can find a way. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts because until now, Akira had been living a peaceful life viewed his inability to use magic. He never imagined that a little girl like this might be able to heal his magical nerves. Unexpectedly, the girl shouts that it's impossible because beyond being difficult, they don't have the resources. However, if Akira were to visit her homeland with a lot of money, which is impossible for him, she could examine him. At this moment, even if he had the money, the hero doesn't want to be healed, so he asks if he can leave now. But while the sorceress calls him useless, the captain says she still needs the summoner. Obviously, Prol doesn't understand why they need a deadweight like him, but Katia tries to convince her, saying an advanced golem will change everything. If necessary, even Katia herself offers to share her mana, and thus the decision is made. However, the true purpose of this mission is to test Akira's ability and character. So far, she doesn't know if he's really as talented as people say. She asks Prol to hand over what they brought, and although the sorceress doesn't want to give such a high-class item to someone she considers trash, she has no choice. It's said that the royal knights of this country spent an enormous amount of money on the cloak. It was made in the land of magic, specifically for mages, and works similarly to a scroll, automatically activating healing and protection spells. However, it seems incredibly expensive, which the captain confirms, saying it's a magical tool crafted in Pennsylvania. This is a valuable item with unparalleled performance and is a gift from Metis, so it must be accepted. Prol honestly believes it's like throwing pearls to swine, but Keiichi says it's not her decision to make. At this moment, the protagonist doesn't even know how to thank them and says that although he's at a novice level, he'll do his best. The captain, excited, calls the youngsters forward, declaring that adventure awaits them. When they encounter their first enemy, the sorceress casts a thunder spell, and the swordswoman wastes no time advancing and cutting with her magic flash. Akira is left intimidated as they defeat a female basilisk in its mating season as if it were just a lizard. It's now clear, these two are a master swordswoman and a prodigy sorceress from the royal court. However, since they're so powerful, the hero can't understand why they even meet him. Later, as they approach the flame dragon's nest, the girls decide to take a bath. While relaxing, the sorceress asks if she should use healing magic, and the captain suggests using it on Akira. But the girl continues to think the boy isn't worth it, and as he turns around, she yells at him not to look. The hero also wants to take a bath in the hot spring, but he has his own way of relieving fatigue. This is because he brought a bunch of elixir drawing scrolls. Akira has been using them since he was a child, and the ability to draw items is a secret he's kept even from Arya. In the past, Arya told him to remember that the method used to save his life destroyed his mana reservoir. Since his body can't produce mana, trying to summon something without receiving external help would cause him to die of exhaustion. Thus, the hero thinks about how Arya is always looking out for him, and he feels guilty for lying to her again by not telling her about the dragon mission. Unexpectedly, Prol catches the boy holding the scroll and remarks that something so simple doesn't require an elixir. What stands out the most, however, is the color of the water around them, which changes because it's actually a magical spring and not a hot spring. The water glows golden, a testament to the large amount of magic within the girl, and the same happens with Keiichi, as if it's some kind of cheat. Regardless, this is expected from a family of heroes, and the spring gradually restores the two girls' magic. Prol relaxes quite a bit, but when Akira's gaze crosses with Keiichi's, a latter suggests he join them, leaving the sorceress furious. Despite her feelings, perhaps a magical spring might have some effect on mana circulation. Reluctantly, the girl agrees but instructs Akira to stay far in the corner. Akira seizes the opportunity to relax as well, and Keiichi asks how he's feeling. At that moment, Prol is startled because suddenly the water around the trash starts glowing like a rainbow. The sorceress quickly demands to know why this is happening and who the boy truly is. Akira panics as well because he never imagined his body might have some hidden ability. However, this excites the captain greatly as the light indicates that the boy possesses an enormous amount of mana. Prol agrees but notes that this is new even to her since she's never seen anything like it, causing Keiichi to burst into laughter. At this point, Prol doesn't know whether Akira is incredible or not because nothing like this has ever happened before. She explains that there are 5 types of reactions indicated by magical springs ranging from green to blue, red, and even gold. However, the rainbow color isn't recorded in any magical grimoires, making it seem like a joke, though it also slightly restores the protagonist's morale. Regardless, Prol asks if the boy is some kind of disguised demon or an immeasurably incompetent individual, to which he shouts that there's no need to go that far. Later, a campfire is lit and Keiichi rests beside a tree. Prol approaches with a warm drink. She offers to stand watch, but when the captain declines, she at least asks to stay with her. The two share a pleasant moment together, and Prol sarcastically comments on Akira leaving the two women to stand guard while he sleeps like a log. Keiichi defends him, saying not to be too hard on him since it's his first mission of subjugation. Though disappointed in men these days, Prol quickly shifts the conversation to ask why Keiichi is so interested in Akira. It's true that Stromheim doesn't have many summoners, but with a mana disturbance, it shouldn't even be possible to form a contract, and she doubts he even has one. Kaguya herself can't believe Akira made a contract at 7 years old, but when she investigated his father, she became convinced because it was none other than Carl Rainford. This revelation shocks Prole, who asks if it's the same Carl she knows from the Pennsylvania Academy. This man is called the greatest genius in the history of magic and has even been described as the second envoy of the evil god. Prole can't believe that this incompetent boy is Carl's son, but 18 years ago, he disappeared because he refused to participate in the war against Odar. It's likely that he retired to take care of his son, and although the idea of a child summoner seems absurd, it becomes less unrealistic with Carl involved. The great genius who was said to have brought magical technology to its current level could very well have had an extraordinary child. This is why Kaguya became obsessed with him, and when she met him, she oddly felt a sense of attachment, like he was family. The next day, the group finally encounters the Flame Dragon. Prole orders the incompetent boy to do his job, and he summons an advanced golem. To the surprise of both girls, the summoning is real, but Prole still can't understand how a 7-year-old boy formed this contract. However, the worst happens when the girl's mana begins to drain rapidly. Kaguya shouts for the hero to draw the dragon's attention so she can attack, but Akira still doesn't have enough mana to move the golem as he wants, and Prole refuses to give more, insisting he find a way to be more efficient. Gradually, the dragon slows down and Kaguya shouts for everyone to focus because the first fire breath is coming. Unfortunately, the golem manages to block the attack, so the captain urges Akira to keep holding on. For the first time, Prole feels useless because she can't supply enough mana to meet demand. Determined, she decides that even if it's only temporary, she'll increase mana efficiency to repair Akira's magical nerves. At this pace, she will undoubtedly exhaust herself, but she continues providing magic while his nerves recover. Slowly, the mana drainage decreases, but Prole won't last much longer. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Kaguya prepares to finish the dragon. Activating her red eyes, she unleashes a magical flash attack 30 times faster. A hero is a mutation created by an ancient god known as the Goddess of War, transforming the individual into a superhuman. The symbol of Stromheim is the heroic Mayan family, one of the 7 heroic families that protect the world, and the magic flash technique is a skill passed down through generations. This is the swordswoman's ultimate ability, capable of delivering 100 cuts per second and even exceeding the speed of light. The red eye, known as Bloody Fiends, is the Mayan symbol widely recognized globally under the name Berserker's Blood. With a single sword strike, the enormous dragon fell, and Akira wondered if this was the power Metis would possess in the future. To be honest, Kaguya had her doubts before, but now she's convinced, and with that, the mission is complete. Akira, in turn, says that everything he achieved was thanks to Prole, but the captain explains that even so, contracts with beasts aren't formed that quickly. The only way is if the previous summoner passes it on or if the beast willingly kneels before the summoner. In any case, the requirement for advanced summoning is rare, and being able to accomplish this at 7 years old is absurd. At this point, Kaguya shouts at the boy, demanding to know why he hid such talent and if his father ordered him to do so. Akira finds himself in an awkward situation because, as expected, the mission unfolded well, but Kaguya's questioning him only now is strange. To deflect suspicion, the hero tries to exclude his father, claiming he was blinded by money. He also asks why they keep bringing up his father, and Kaguya explains it's because everything ties into Carl's plan. In the captain's mind, Carl hid his son's abilities to nurture a genius mage, but to Akira, his father is simply a shopkeeper. Prole, however, yells at Akira not to lie, pointing out that forming a contract at 7 years old is highly suspicious, but it's been proven, as the contract persists even without mana. The only plausible explanation is that someone with extraordinary skills helped the boy accomplish it. For example, the greatest magic genius in the history of the Magic Academy, Carl Rainford. Akira is utterly desperate because he's never heard of this and believes it must be a misunderstanding. If it isn't, then unfortunately, the system deceived him, and now the hero faces another problematic life. Despite not understanding the boy's connection to Carl, Kaguya apologizes, admitting the real purpose of the mission was to confirm Akira's abilities. However, she assures him they mean no harm, as the mission comes from Metis, who cares deeply for Akira. At that moment, a tremor occurs, but it's not caused by volcanic activity. Instead, a flame dragon appears alive behind Kaguya. The captain quickly prepares to defend herself, but Prole immediately notices that this is not just a flame dragon's nest. It's actually the lair of a divine beast. Among the divine beasts are Gnome, the beast of earth, Leviathan, the beast of water, and Elfin, the beast of wind. But there's also the most powerful of them all, the fire divine beast, Salamandra. These creatures are the pinnacle of living beings, rulers of the 4 elements, and they don't tolerate the presence of others, so the group must not provoke it. Akira asks if they can simply run away, but Prole explains they can't because the beast's flames can reach over 3,000 degrees across 100 meters. The hero then asks if the sorceress has any ice magic, but she says no, and the two start arguing because she's supposedly a genius. Even if she were skilled in ice magic, it wouldn't work, as defeating Salamandra would require someone like Elfin or both Leviathan and Gnome combined. The hero asks if Leviathan can be summoned, but Prole responds no because such a feat transcends humanity. However, in the past, the leader of the malignant cult wielded that power. Not wanting to interrupt, Keisha states that the decision to fight or retreat must be made now. Akira believes they should slowly back away without fleeing outright or turning their backs. But Salamandra decides to attack, and everyone runs for their lives in desperation. Fortunately, Prole manages to block an attack even after using almost all her mana in the previous battle. In a heroic act, Keisha orders Prole to grab Akira and escape while she handles the beast alone. The sorceress then yells at the incompetent Akira to use his golem. That's because with a barrier, they can create an escape route, and she will lend her mana for the summoning. Obviously, the protagonist thinks it's absurd because his mana efficiency is terrible, but Prole tells him to shut up as she'll take care of the leakage. Akira refuses to use Katia as bait to escape and instead decides to draw the Salamandra's attention with the golem once again. When he summons an even stronger one, Prole finally says she'll stop calling him incompetent. It's now time to repair Akira's mana nerves. At this moment, Prole uses 3 spells simultaneously, giving her all to sustain them. The hero begins to understand what a true mage from the land of magic is like. Without losing focus, Prole continues casting spells and even invokes a 4th spell, a never-ending cloud that envelops them all. At the same time, she supports the water spell, making things easier for Katia. Additionally, she announces that she'll increase Akira's efficiency, extending the golem's mobility. Tremendous focus is required to reach each mana nerve and delve deep to repair the disturbance. Within Akira's body, a rainbow-colored orb connecting all the nerves begins to glow. This indicates that Akira's mana reservoir wasn't destroyed, but was instead hidden. Still, the sheer, seemingly endless amount of mana impresses Prole, who admits it's far greater than her own. Even in Pennsylvania, the strongest magical nation on the continent, Prole Brace's magic was unparalleled. In mana transfer classes, it was said that an average mage's reservoir was the size of a human heart, while an excellent mage's was several times larger. Because of her massive reservoir, Prole was often called a monster by envious individuals. But Akira Rainfur on an entirely different level. This is the result of consuming so many elixirs. Now Prole understands the rainbow colors. How his body expresses this capacity, though she still doesn't know how it was hidden. Soon, however, the girl realizes that someone intentionally concealed the reservoir. Back on the battlefield, Akira shouts, snapping Prole out of her trance just in time to protect herself from an attack. Still, the damage is massive, and the monster doesn't hesitate to target the hero again, making his life flash before his eyes. At the last moment, the mage steps in front of him again, yelling for him to run as she's nearing her limit. The flames consume everything, and Katia starts to panic, believing her friend won't survive. But suddenly, Katia gains access to the dragon's chest, and recalling that this is the salamandra's weak point, strikes with all her might. The monster trembles in pain, but from the wound, an immense amount of lava spills out and Katia cannot avoid it. Later, Akira, his body burned all over, carries the mage on his back. When she regains consciousness, she calls him a coward and says she can't abandon her friend. But Akira insists there's no other choice. Prole slaps the boy, calling him a pathetic excuse for a man, but Akira explains he isn't fleeing. He's retreating to rethink their strategy. At this moment, the hero mentions an elixir scroll, but Prole angrily tells him to shut up because it's no time for jokes. Again, Akira asks for her attention, saying he'll recover her mana so she can transfer it back. Despite his insistence, Prole doesn't believe him and questions if he plans to summon the golem again. Akira responds that he intends to destroy the salamandra and repeats that once her mana is restored, he'll borrow it. Currently, Akira knows he's at a disadvantage due to elemental attributes, so what he plans to summon is the divine beast of water, Leviathan. Far away, atop the castle in the kingdom, the princess remarks that she knows the boy is angry because she broke her promise. But it's thanks to him that she's safe, and despite how selfish it may seem, the country needs the summoner, Akira. With the salamandra's attack, Katia is thrown backward. Even as a hero, she could die from incineration, but she rises, determined to hold her ground. Once again, she activates her red eyes, ready to sacrifice herself while the others escape. Another, even stronger explosion follows, drawing the attention of Prole and Akira. Faced with this, Prole struggles to stay still and Akira restrains her. The mage angrily questions if he plans to let Katia die. With calm rationality, the boy warns that if she intervenes, they'll both die and breaks the recovery scroll. The sorceress realizes that her attributes have returned to normal, but the fact that such a thing came from a scroll still doesn't make sense. Akira explains that he brought a few elixirs as a precaution, but Prole remains skeptical and asks again what he plans to do with her magic. With all the confidence in the world, Akira firmly declares once more that he's going to summon the divine beast Leviathan. Knowing that Prole wants to save Katia, the boy shouts that now is their chance. Logically, Prole gets irritated, thinking Akira is joking at such a critical moment, but the hero tells her to stop complaining. He explains that it's better to lend him the magic and stop if it turns out to be a lie. At this moment, both of them need to do everything they can for Katia, and since Akira even managed to secure an elixir, he insists that he can do it. Prole thinks about it. She's never heard of a contract with a divine beast, and she doesn't want to waste her magic. However, in the end, she decides to transfer her mana, believing it's worth a single shot. With Prole's full power, Akira feels encouraged as her magic is even greater than Aria's. With a complete drawing, the hero fulfills his promise and summons the divine beast of water, Leviathan. In utter shock, Pearl struggles to understand what is happening, and recalling the elixir, she realizes it's not about skill or luck. This is something that shouldn't be possible, and the sorceress becomes desperate to know who Akira truly is. Once summoned, the beast begins to attack Salamandra, and as waves push the fire dragon back, Keiichi wonders if what she's seeing is real. A divine beast has appeared, and Akira seems to be in control. When Leviathan fires a jet of water, the hero becomes desperate because it appears unable to overpower Salamandra's flames. It becomes clear that the title of strongest is well-deserved, as Salamandra's power could even challenge a god. Meanwhile, Pearl's mana consumption is no joke, but with no choice, she pushes herself to hold on for as long as possible. When she analyzes Akira's mana nerves, she finds an immense reservoir of mana ready to be used. During the clash between the giants, Pearl notices that Keiichi is safe, but the captain seems disheartened by the appearance of another beast. The sorceress informs Keiichi that she should be grateful because Leviathan is Akira's summoning, leaving the captain utterly stunned. In the past, Metis insisted to her mentor that the boy was extraordinary, but his fire golem and young age didn't make the case convincing. However, the princess confirmed that she had witnessed it herself and added that Akira had even managed to summon items. Metis promised not to tell anyone, but since they were in crisis, Akira's strength was necessary. For the princess, Akira possessed the power to save not just Stromheim from the Odar, but the entire world as well. Given Metis' usually cautious nature, her excitement about Akira convinced the swordswoman to believe in him. Back in the battle, Pearl calls for Kesh's help, explaining that the situation is dire. The captain suggests they retreat, but her magic is nearly depleted. If Leviathan disappears, Salamandra will shift its attention back to them. They need magic, and Pearl asks Keiichi to support Akira. Keiichi questions if it will be enough, and Pearl reassures her, pleading because she has a plan. Because her friend asked so earnestly, Keiichi agrees to help as much as she can for as long as she can manage. Soon, Akira notices that Keiichi is also providing magic, and he mentally thanks her. Now comes the critical moment of reconnecting Akira's isolated mana nerves to the source. With extreme care, Pearl aims to restore at least 30% of functionality, knowing that a mistake could disrupt his internal balance and kill him. Using her extensive knowledge, Pearl works with maximum effort, gradually restoring the nerves. Finally, the restoration reaches the 30% mark, enough for Aria to sense Akira's presence during her daily tasks. At this point, Keiichi is the first to panic and calls out to Pearl because an insane amount of magic begins swirling around Akira. Akira feels as if he's overflowing, and Keiichi notices the same rainbow color as before, prompting her to ask Pearl what she did. Despite how unbelievable it sounds, Pearl informs her that the magic is Akira's, and that he still has even more to release. So much magic in one person doesn't make sense, but even though Pearl doesn't fully understand Akira, she's already decided she'll definitely put him to work. Pearl shouts that the boy won't get to slack off just because he's not a fighter, announcing that she repaired his mana nerves so he could battle. The protagonist realizes this is his magic, and at first it's too much for his brain to process. However, he begins to feel like he might explode as his magic continues to grow, making him believe he can do anything. When the fire divine beast launches a blast of fire, Leviathan easily dodges it. Not just by thinking, Akira can direct the beast's movements and counterattack, leaving the two girls in disbelief. Pearl can't comprehend what's happening, thinking she must be dreaming since a human not only summoned, but is also controlling Leviathan. Regardless, the captain snaps at Pearl to stop staring into space because they need to help too. First, Keiichi plans to target the dragon's legs, so she asks for water magic support, and the two work in sync. The captain of the Knights uses her crystal time ability alongside magic flash and a combination attack. This creates the frozen inferno to strike 50 times stronger than her usual dancing blade style. With the beast now reeling, it's time for the protagonist to make another move. Fortunately, Akira lands a clean blow, but the captain shouts that it won't be enough since the dragon's weakness is in its heart. The dragon won't fall unless its heart is destroyed. Akira, however, thinks it's easier said than done, as the heart is well protected by muscles as hard as steel. At this moment, Pearl shouts a warning to be careful as Salamandra is preparing another fire breath. Demonstrating immense power, the monster launches an attack that throws everyone back, but before Akira can be harmed, a magical barrier appears in front of him. Even after everything, Pearl continues to support him because if Akira is hit, it's all over. However, if they're hit again, they won't survive, leaving the hero questioning what he should do next. Certainly, the monster is known as the strongest beast for a reason, and even with Leviathan, Akira realizes he's at a disadvantage. No matter how much magic he pours into the fight, the gap between their strength won't change, so he starts thinking of a way out. The first idea that comes to mind is switching to the wind element, but Akira knows nothing about Elfin. The second idea is also dismissed. In the end, they need a technique to kill in a single strike. Akira begins sketching the idea in his mind. He plans to concentrate all of Leviathan's offensive power into a single point, transforming it into a focused attack. As he works, the girls watch in shock at what the protagonist is doing, and Akira asks Pearl to protect him one more time. He explains that once he's finished, he'll aim for an opening and pierce the dragon's heart in one go. The boy knows he has no chance in a long battle, so he decides to pour all his magic into one final attack. As the creator of this technique, Akira successfully refines it, astonishing both the mage and the knight once again. Thinking of a fitting name for the ability, Akira decides to call it Levinger, the Heartseeker. Before attacking, Akira warns them that he doesn't know how long he can hold out and that they only have one chance. He relies on Prol to create a barricade and catch it to provoke Salamandra. This way, he can aim and strike at just the right moment. Although the mage is slightly annoyed with the plan, the captain fully trusts herself to act as the bait. Prol shouts for Katia not to go alone, but the captain doesn't listen. Even so, Keiji can't help but feel that the words of a boy with zero combat experience somehow calm her. In that moment, she wonders if this is how the hero stole the princess's heart. Since everyone is doing what they want, Prol decides to help instead of just providing support. In a risky move, she uses the Endless Infinite Barrier, a magic that draws from the user's life force when they don't have enough mana. Now she no longer cares what path they take because they won't get another chance. With that, she shouts for Katia to charge forward in the wildest way she can. At that moment, something startles everyone as the Salamandra begins preparing another massive attack. In an instant, the Salamandra releases its critical fire breath, forcing Prol to use all her strength to maintain the barrier, as this blast is even stronger than the previous one. However, Prol notices that Katia is also donating mana, and now it's Akira's turn to prove why Metis recognize him. Naturally, the attack hits the barrier and Akira realizes how much effort Prol is putting in to hold it together. The Salamandra will undoubtedly be unable to move after this attack, and Akira prepares to strike as soon as its breathing slows. He waits patiently for an opening, and finally a moment of exhaustion comes. Focusing all the magic in his nerves to the tip of his finger, Akira launches his invocation at high speed. Raising wings in its path, the heart-seeking spear pierces through the Salamandra, causing the girls to go wild. Prol shouts in disbelief, wondering if she's dreaming or something of the sort, because now that once useless boy has just slain the strongest of all divine beasts. Meanwhile, at a peaceful dinner at the Rainford home, Akira's mother brings up her son, hoping he's doing well. Carl asks why she thinks otherwise since Akira only went out to deliver some orders. Diva responds that the trip was long and being so far away, he might even return with a girlfriend. Setting that aside, Carl notices he hasn't seen Aria anywhere. Diva explains that she isn't there because she isn't hungry. She mentions that Aria said she had a task to do, but Carl seems a bit thoughtful about it. Back on the battlefield, Salamandra is completely defeated. Katia never imagined someone could possess such summoning abilities, and in the end, it was exactly as the princess had said. To her, Akira has the potential to protect the people from the Odar and become the savior of the nation. Starting a conversation, Prol calls Akira by his name for the first time and asks if he truly has a mana disorder. Before he can answer, she inquires about the elixir and the summoning of the divine beast. Even so, she has other questions first, like the sheer amount of magic Akira possesses. Seriously, she wants to know who this boy is, but Akira collapses to the ground, completely drained after using all his magic. Once again, the hero feels the effects of mana exhaustion, and as he is carried to safety, he thinks about how none of this makes sense to him. From atop a mountain, a group of cultists watches everything, and one asks if this is the boy named Akira. Another remarks on his ability to kill the Salamander single-handedly, adding that the most intriguing part is his ability to summon without a contract. A masked figure questions if this will impact the Odar plan in Stromheim. The others focus on this point, agreeing that this boy clearly possesses the power of a singularity. At this moment, a woman from before asks if Calamaz is present to ease their concerns. Calamaz laughs and agrees, though she warns she must be cautious with her report because a certain sister is keeping an eye on her. The cultists inquire if she's referring to one of the four great shadows. Calamaz confirms, saying it's none other than the End. 700 years ago, four ancient singularities created by the goddess fought for supremacy. The four were called the Shadows due to their immense power, and the only one uninterested in ruling was the End, created by the goddess of chaos, Ruin Mariah. It was the End who ended the war and established the treaty forbidding the creation of new singularities by the Shadows. One of the shorter cultists asks why individuals bound by the treaty are reappearing, and if they've broken their own pact. However, Calamaz suggests the treaty hasn't been broken because the boy may not be a creation of the End. Instead, she proposes that his power may be a natural phenomenon rather than a product of the Shadows. That's precisely why she intervened earlier, to either eliminate this power or recruit it as an ally. The cultists agree that it would be a shame to eliminate him outright, so one suggests observing him for now and deciding in the future. The others agree, provided they all consent to a longer observation period. However, one cultist accuses Calamaz of manipulating them, claiming she has always been interested in the boy. Calamaz denies this, stating that her only concern is fear of the End. Regardless, the villains are deeply intrigued by how far this boy will go. Everything they do will be in pursuit of the resurrection of their great shadow leader, Icarus Enro. Later, at the protagonist's house, Captain Keisha first apologizes for borrowing Carl's son for a subjugation mission without informing them. But more importantly, she wants there to be no more secrets between them. Asking Carl to be honest, Keisha questions why Carl Rainford has been hiding his son's powers until now. El Fargo is a deep area in the snowy cliffs of the far northern continent of Ariana, and Carens is an autonomous duchy subservient to Stromheim. In this place, a man hunts a stag as today alone they found 3 animals transformed into Odar. For him, there is no longer any doubt that the third wave will soon fall upon them. He reports this to Karen's Giriden of the 7th House of Heroes. It's only been a week since the second wave, but now it's unclear if the megs will be enough. Thus, the order is given to send a messenger bird to the kingdom, as reinforcements from the mage battalion are crucial for a crisis of this magnitude. Back at Akira's house, Keiichi explains that due to the northern situation, all heirs to the throne are desperately seeking summoners. Once again, she asks why Akira has been kept hidden until now, causing Carl to ponder. But unexpectedly, he simply responds that he doesn't know what she's talking about and asks what exactly his son can do. Obviously, Keisha thinks Carl is playing dumb, but he insists he has no idea what she's talking about. In this case, despite not believing him, the captain explains Akira's summoning at the age of 7. Additionally, it is revealed that someone sealed his magical source, and for both Diva and Carl, this is the first time hearing of it. Kachia also mentions that Akira's magic is insane and warns Carl that pretending otherwise is useless. She adds that she'll be informing the crown that Akira must attend the magical academy and later become the kingdom's personal summoner. Carl then realizes that Kashia's words hold no lies, but this only confuses him further. Thus, he asks the captain to let his son explain himself if she doesn't mind. Noticing Carl's demeanor, Keiichi apologizes for raising her voice and agrees to give them the time they need. In the meantime, she'll wait at the inn for news, though she emphasizes that the country needs Akira's power. And if possible, they also need the prodigy from the Magical Academy of Pennsylvania. In his room, Akira hears a voice asking for his power to be released, and he feels his mana draining again. Above him, Aria assures him that everything will be fine as the power of the seal has been fully released, and she is taking care of him. After all, Akira is her future husband. She then kisses him to help circulate his mana. When the girl is on top of him, Akira suddenly wakes up, questioning what she's doing. Quite boldly, Aria replies that it's obviously what he's thinking. Akira promptly throws her out of the room, leaving the maid a bit confused since it was genuinely a mana circulation massage. At this moment, Carl appears and asks if Aria has a moment to talk. Later, Akira reflects that the incident really shook him since Aria continues to treat him like a child. However, he remembers what she said about being his wife and feels embarrassed, recalling the promise he made as a child. For a moment, the hero considers that Aria might see him as a man, but he quickly dismisses the thought, thinking he's deluding himself. Regardless, Akira needs to recover, so he creates another elixir. However, before he can drink it, something happens. A scroll unexpectedly catches fire. As it burns, the protagonist throws the drawing to the ground to avoid being burned. He immediately wonders what went wrong since he followed his usual method. This leads him to think it could be due to his mana changes, and at that moment, his mother enters the room to talk. First, she asks about the issue of summoning without a contract, and although Akira tries to play dumb, Diva informs him that Keisha told them everything. Returning to Carl's conversation, he recalls that Aria once said the accident was caused by the cultists of evil, and although he didn't investigate, he always suspected. However, he never imagined the mistake was as significant as Akira's mana. Even though he trusted Aria, she sealed his son's magic right in front of him. In this case, Carl shouted, asking about what Katya had said and whether this cruelty Aria inflicted on Akira was part of her plan as a shadow. More than anything now, the father wanted to know if the maid had raised his son as a singularity. In response, Aria recalled how long ago Carl had promised to accept her into his family, and she had dedicated herself to that promise. The truth is, ever since Akira was born, he has had summoning abilities that exceed those of a singularity. Because of this, Aria was worried that his power might grow even further and attract the attention of other shadows or unknown singularities. Thus, to protect Akira, she deemed it necessary to seal his abilities. But Carl shouted again, pointing out that releasing all that power at once had caused a huge disturbance. In the end, the talent of that child was so immense that not even Aria could fully contain it. Given the situation, the maid confirmed that Akira was not ordinary, but someone who rivaled the shadows. Naturally, Carl found this ridiculous, but asked if there was any way to escape the Rainford family curse, because he was certain that the curse of their lineage would ultimately destroy him. In response, Aria revealed that it was too late because everyone already saw Akira as a target. That's why, instead of hiding, it might be safer for Akira to become the palace's official summoner. If the boy became a royal mage, the shadows would also have to act more cautiously. But Carl became furious at her suggestion. However, more than anything, Aria deeply valued the oath she had made with her ancestors. She swore that if Akira were ever in danger, Myraria would protect him, even if it meant becoming an enemy to all the shadows. Carl could see the truth in her words and asked if she would truly protect him, even if it led to war. And in some strange way, even though it was a horrible thought, it brought him some peace. Later, in the hero's room, Akira felt a bit confused about the idea of going to the Magic Academy. But he realized that Carl had already heard everything about his summoning abilities. Katya hadn't held back any details, and to be honest, Carl was trying to process and believe it all. Even so, Akira thought that Carl couldn't possibly know everything, like his drawing abilities or his reincarnation. Apologizing for lying, Akira admitted he had known about his abilities since childhood, but thought they would cause trouble. Carl laughed, telling his son not to apologize for such good problems. Moreover, both he and Diva found it admirable that Akira had been able to prioritize his family from such a young age. In any case, Carl lamented that the crown had discovered Akira's abilities, as children with such talent were always sent to the academy. Akira explained that he had no choice because Katya had found out, but to be honest, he wasn't happy because his dream had always been to take over the shop. He also complained about not knowing how many years he would have to be away from home, which only made Carl prouder. Regardless, what was done, and Akira's power could protect the people he cared about. Despite everything, Carl believed that instead of denying his abilities, they should be nurtured. This reminded Akira of when his mother had praised his talent for drawing manga. Unable to hold back, Akira began crying, making Carl think he truly hated the academy. To explain, the protagonist gave the excuse that he would feel lonely, but Carl reassured him that he didn't need to worry, because there would always be a place for him in this house where he was born and raised. The two laughed, and Akira realized that his father was absolutely right, because there would always be a warm, welcoming place waiting for him at home. Putting that aside, Akira mentioned hearing something interesting from Ketya, as apparently there had been a master wizard in Pennsylvania. He asked if Carl knew anyone like that, and Carl gave a flimsy excuse, saying he might know someone. Either way, Carl promised to tell him everything on Akira's graduation day, which made the boy feel it was unfair. A week later, at the family home, Diva gave all her instructions before her son left. As he promised to behave well, his mother gave him a tight hug, telling him to take care of himself. Finally, it was time to say goodbye to the maid. Akira entrusted her with the care of his family while he was at the academy and bid her farewell. Later, in the royal capital of Stromheim, Akira found the place bustling with life. In addition, he fondly remembered Gus' reaction when he told him about paying off the debt and his admission to the academy. At this point, Katya asked what the boy thought of the inside of the city walls, but Akira simply ignored her. Obviously, the girl was taken aback and asked the mage if she was imagining things. To offer some advice, Prol suggested that maybe he hadn't heard her, but Katya believed the two were conspiring against her. Regardless, she commented that they should act like siblings, but Akira thought it was hypocritical of her to say that after kidnapping him. Cutting to the chase, Prol announced that she would be leaving, which prompted Akira to ask if they would be traveling together. The mage then explained that she wasn't his assistant and had only come along to earn money. Before leaving, he thanked Prol for everything she had done for him and for saving him so many times, leaving her blushing. Not wanting to appear soft, she said she only did it to save herself, and Katya used the opportunity to say her farewells as well. Finally, Prol gave him one last piece of advice. Katya was indeed trustworthy, even if there was a reason she couldn't reveal everything. And now that his magic was unsealed, Prol believed Akira's path was set. She then departed, addressing him by name for the first time. Afterward, Katya encouraged him to hold his head high, saying it was a sign of respect. She also noted that Akira's mana exceeded Prol's, which was expected from a lineage of geniuses, though little did she know it was due to the elixirs. Putting that aside, they would soon arrive at the royal palace, where they would first meet Metis, which made Akira nervous. Later, the protagonist was amazed by how enormous and magnificent the castle was. Inside the royal palace, he could never have imagined such grandeur, and there he waited for Katya to arrive with Metis. Naturally, he felt a bit anxious because waiting in such a place felt strange. Moreover, the boy wondered why he was at the royal palace when he wasn't even a noble. At that moment, someone told him not to turn around. At first, Akira thought it was a guard, but when he tried to check, the voice yelled again, telling him not to look. The person then asked if Akira was angry with Metis, insisting that he answer. The hero couldn't understand why he would be upset, which caught the person off guard. In this case, Metis saw no reason to keep hiding, and after 8 years, asked if the boy was doing well. But before anything else, she bowed and apologized, saying everything that happened to him was her fault. Metis felt terrible for breaking the promise they made and was willing to do anything to earn his forgiveness. However, Akira apologized for interrupting and asked who the girl in front of him was. A few minutes earlier, he had been wondering who she was and why she was apologizing. That was until he was punched in the face mercilessly after showing genuine confusion. Yelling, the person responsible for the punch said it was improper to use an excuse to embarrass someone. For someone of royalty, it was indecent to submit to a young man, so the girl took full responsibility for the princess, regardless of the consequences. That crazy person was Katya, and unexpectedly, Akira had no idea what was going on because he didn't even know who was apologizing. In this case, the knight became even more concerned that he didn't recognize her after so many years, since this was Stromheim's heir, Princess Metisfina. Clearly, the boy was shocked, and since princess was a feminine title, he asked if she was a girl, which was already obvious. Everything was happening all at once. Midas was not only a girl, but also a princess. In response, the boy asked if she was trying to fool him again with feminine clothes, which Katya found extremely rude. Later in the dining hall, Metis recalled the broken promise but said she needed to see him somehow. However, the protagonist still couldn't believe it. His former friend was not only a beautiful woman, but also a refined princess. Noticing his nervousness, Metis reassured Akira that he could relax and asked if he was really that shocked about her gender. This brought back memories of their childhood conversation, proving she was truly the same person. Akira had never expected her to be a princess, and the way they had parted felt quite cruel. In this case, Metis once again apologized for hiding so much and betraying his trust. However, the hero left those matters in the past because hiding such power wouldn't be easy, and he understood that she had her reasons. As a result, the girl was glad her old friend understood, but before anything else, she needed to say something. After graduating from the academy, Metis wanted Akira to become the official court summoner. In this case, the hero was a bit concerned because the agreement was that he would return home after graduating, not become a vassal. In this country, all children with magical talent are required to attend the academy before they can proceed with their lives. But now the situation was different because of the calamities known as the Odars. The hero knew these were the hordes of monsters defeated 14 years ago, so he asked if they had reappeared. Not exactly, because even though it was a secret, the calamity hadn't stopped, and for 14 years, the invasions had been contained. The Duchy of Carinthia and allied troops from various countries guarding the northern wall of the continent had always helped. But now the kingdom needed assistance because it was vulnerable to external influences, and the duty of the powerful to learn magic was essential to restore the country. This meant the kingdom was still under threat from the Odarians, and the princess herself was exposed. Together with other princes and princesses, she formed research orders worldwide, searching for mages and summoners, and as an heir, she needed to produce results. That being said, since Akira was the strongest summoner she knew, she asked if he would share his power as her vassal. However, the hero replied that once he graduated, he intended to carry on his father's legacy and inherit the shop. He also asked if this was a request or an order. Obviously, things weren't going as the princess had hoped, and she apologized, saying she didn't want to force him. Moreover, she gave her word that nothing would be done without his consent. Thus, Metis mentioned that a room was prepared for him in the palace, where he could rest before they spoke again. Later, the hero lay on his bed, feeling a bit uneasy as he reflected on his decision, and Keiichi appeared to scold him. Perched on the boy's window, she told Akira he wasn't a real man, leaving him panicked and asking how she got there. Returning to the previous matter, the protagonist yelled, asking what she was doing and why she was wearing that. However, Katya saw no problem in wearing nighttime pajamas and asked what was strange about it. The hero explained that it wasn't appropriate to dress like that in a man's room and tried to get her to leave. In her defense, she said she had left in the middle of a pajama party and decided to stop by because she needed to confirm something. Getting straight to the point, the captain asked why Akira had refused the princess's request. Without hesitation, he explained that it sounded like an order from a princess who wanted the throne. In the end, he simply wanted transparency, and he knew that, in the eyes of common people, he was an idiot for trying to treat the princess as a friend. In this case, the captain remarked that he hadn't understood her true intentions. Metis was the heir to the throne, and despite the danger, she had requested help rather than issuing an order. Moreover, the princess wasn't like Queen Kaizura because she was the daughter of the second queen. Regardless, the hero mentioned that he wasn't interested in politics, but Keiichi continued. During the war 14 years ago, a couple who risked their lives to protect the country became the kingdom's salvation. A princess born between the sword Mayan and the powerful Mayan family heir was Medisfina. Finally, the hero made the connection and understood the origin of her surname. Continuing, the knight explained that this kingdom had been ruled by queens for generations and was also a land of heroes. For this reason, it must have been a shock that such a brave man fell victim to the Odars. After that, Queen Kaizura abandoned the supremacy of the hero and established a magic academy. Enrollment was mandatory for those over 18 with talent to strengthen the country. Therefore, this was the reason the captain had brought Akira here. Originally, the throne should have been given to the rightful daughter of the queen, the first princess. But Ursula Stromheim suddenly renounced her right to succession, making the second princess eligible. Due to the national law prohibiting men from inheriting the throne, Metis became the only viable heir. But the problem was that there was also the first prince, Oswald Stromheim, and he wasn't the type to simply ignore this. Oswald was the first prince in the lineage and had always been someone gifted with magic. By the queen's command, he studied abroad in many magical institutions, possessing powers from a young age, and grew dissatisfied with the country's traditions. However, after the war, the atmosphere between the prince and magic changed entirely. Akira asked if it was because the queen focused all her efforts on magic, and he was correct. Oswald plans to transform this country into a magical superpower, using all his experiences in other nations to challenge the heroes. Long ago, there was an assassination attempt on the princess, and the captain believes the prince was involved. Moreover, his professional political strategies yielded excellent results, pressuring Metis to implement changes. Unfortunately, as an exception, Oswald was also granted the right to compete for the throne. Essentially, this was like announcing a competition among the children, turning the country into a toy for external influences. Thus, even in such a difficult situation, Metis merely asked for help. For someone who was her best friend, she refused to issue a command. Even during the earlier pajama party, Metis' face continued to glow with hope for Akira's success. All that consideration for her childhood friend was as pure as it could be. Therefore, Akira remembered when the girl promised they would meet again and felt happy. Returning to the matter at hand, Keisha is convinced that Metis is worthy of being queen, and having someone like Akira by her side would be reassuring. She even used the classic "with great power comes great responsibility" line to persuade Akira, and added that Metis' wish might not only be about what she would gain, it could also be about wanting to be near someone she had feelings for. The two exchanged glances, and the captain asked if it wasn't good to have people to protect him too. However, she noticed Akira's face turn red as she got closer. He made a lame excuse, saying he was fine. But Keisha climbed on top of him and whispered some suggestive words. She was convinced it would be easy to make a teenager fall for the charm of an adult, even though she had never dated anyone before. At that moment, the princess approached the room, reflecting on her earlier behavior and feeling bad about talking so much about herself. She opened the door, apologizing and asking if Akira was already asleep. However, when she entered, she found Akira seemingly trying to see into catch his heart, which left everyone flustered. Later, with a fake smile, the princess apologized for her visit, saying it seemed she had interrupted a moment of intimacy. In response, Keisha tried to explain that it was all a misunderstanding and that they were just fooling around. She then punched Akira, accusing him of wanting to follow her around, and under pressure, Akira agreed. Smiling, Keisha asked where her friend wanted to go, as she could take him anywhere in the castle. Thus began a joyful day for the three of them until they reached the main gate. It was so majestic that Akira couldn't describe it in words. It was the very essence of the castle. Behind the eastern gate were the court knights, and to the west was the Magic Academy. Since enrollment was only the next day, the captain asked if Akira wanted to take a preliminary exam. The hero, however, didn't think it was necessary, and suddenly they heard a noise coming from inside a cart. It was people returning from the duchy, but Metis didn't miss the chance to check on the condition of the wounded herself. The man, in turn, was touched by the attention from someone so important, but for the princess, it was the least she could do. The man insisted that she might get dirty, so Keija explained that these knights fought against the Odars, but were shrouded in secrecy. Thus, the brave soldiers who risked their lives in the north received no credit. They sacrificed themselves for their country, asking for neither glory nor reward, which made them true heroes. Hearing this, Akira thought that Metis hadn't changed since childhood, but someone suddenly appeared, calling all lies and referring to Kachi as an outdated trainer. It was Prince Oswell, who claimed he preferred to see those soldiers as pathetic victims sent to their deaths as bargaining chips. The princess shouted that regardless of his intentions, he had gone too far. At that moment, the hero saw the first prince of the lineage for the first time. Oswell, however, believed he wasn't wrong. The Odars were growing fiercer by the day, and soon people would find out. The reality was that they couldn't rely on faith in heroes or swords for defense, and he declared that the era of blades was a thing of the past. And clinging to that is what makes the kingdom small, because it's time to admit that the country has stagnated behind the rest of the world, trapped in outdated traditions. In this case, the princess asks if he thinks it's right to bring in mages through alliances with foreign interests. Cooperation with other nations is essential, but the power of the blades is still the pride that has sustained this place for generations. Metis shouts that the path of harmony between the sword and magic is the solution they need, and she demands that Oswell retract his statement about the soldier. With their shields, they protected the mages, and that's not a bargaining chip. The prince thinks her ideals are worthy of praise. However, he asks her not to close her eyes to reality, pointing out that even the archbishop bowed to the reinforcements from the mages. Because of this, at the very least, Oswell asks if the princess already has a suitable mage or summoner. He also questions what efforts she has made to develop magic in the country, since no one has followed her so far due to her childish actions. Repeating himself, Oswald tells her to return to reality because he already has hundreds of such people under his command, unlike Metis. Without further empty words about righteousness and traditions, the prince demands at least one achievement of the people to be shown, or else she has no right to be a leader. At this moment, the hero remembers how cruel the professional world is. Returning to the discussion, Oswald says he has a proposal because the second prince of the kingdom of Shahhazan is looking for a wife. Thus, he asks her to consider it for the good of the country, which infuriates her. Unable to take any more of this humiliation, Akira declares that Metis does, in fact, have a summoner, leaving everyone surprised. In this case, the prince asks if the summoner of the lady is the protagonist. For a moment, Akira felt as though the prince was his past self, someone who treated people as mere tools. That's why this guy, who calls his own soldiers bargaining chips, irritated him enough to state his name. and he boldly declares himself as the court's personal summoner, chosen by Medisfina. The princess holds back tears of happiness and Kecha becomes excited too. However, the protagonist feels embarrassed, thinking he may have overstepped even though he wanted to support her. In response, the prince says he recognizes the boy's surname and asks where he's from. Asura replies that he is the son of a magic shop owner from a distant place near the fortress. However, the prince can't understand how he hasn't heard of Asura's talent as a summoner. Thus, Oswald concludes that the protagonist must have performed poorly in the qualification test and mocks him, asking if he can even summon a slime. Innocently, the hero says he can, which leaves Metis furious. She asserts that the prince is so convinced of his position that he has lost touch with the essence of what matters. She agrees that the boy is a commoner but affirms that he is more talented and capable than any noble. The protagonist is left speechless, and everyone finds his reaction of "my princess" somewhat strange. Even the guards overhear everything, recognizing her maturity and standing up to the prince, but Metis was merely defending Asura. Nonetheless, Oswald says he won't disrespect the boy for his origins but asks if it's not an exaggeration to judge him above the nobles. The princess shouts that once he sees what Asura is capable of, he will realize how limited others are. In this case, Oswald asks if Asura is better than any of his men, to which she agrees. To ensure her claims, he suggests they have a test. In summary, she can do as she pleases if the boy truly proves to be stronger than his men. Thus, in a duel, the prince will form an elite team of nobles, consisting of both aristocrats and commoners from the academy, while the princess can assemble her own group. If he loses, he will immediately bow and acknowledge the princess's success. However, if he wins, she must accept that other countries should be involved in developing magic in Stromheim. Additionally, she will have to agree to the marriage proposal he mentioned. But since Metis is confident, it's not an issue. The hero can't believe it because this means putting the throne on the line, and it's obviously a trap. Kecha, in turn, shouts that it's unacceptable for a simple duel to impose such significant political consequences. In this case, to humiliate her in front of the guards, the prince says that if she isn't confident, they can pretend this conversation never happened. The hero feels fortunate that Kecha is present because this prince is not easy to deal with. Then he warns Metis that deciding on important matters with such a simple bet is reckless. But unexpectedly, just as both of them thought she would give up, the princess accepted, leaving everyone wide-eyed. Both the marriage and everything else were accepted because Metis was confident she wouldn't lose as long as Asura was by her side. Oswald truly didn't expect such an enthusiastic conclusion, and to avoid further problems, he asked if she was certain, to which she firmly replied yes. However, in exchange, she declared that if she won, she would demand an apology and the prince's involvement in aiding the kingdom. Oswald didn't mind because he didn't believe there was any chance he would lose. At that moment, the hero realized that despite her change in appearance, that impulsive girl was still the same as before. At the kingdom's magic academy, an elder remarks that Prole doesn't need any qualification training. However, he asks why she suddenly wants to teach when she had rejected every offer in the past. With a smile, she mentions that she heard a rumor that this year would be interesting. In the student cafeteria, a level 21 silver-ranked mage named Anthony Green shouts, asking if anyone has heard the news. It's because they're about to witness a clash between the commoners and the nobility. In response, an 18th level bronze mage, Elisa Regan, tells him not to shout as everyone is already aware. Meanwhile, Annie Breitling, a bronze mage at level 16, summarizes that it's going to be a duel between the hairs. However, she asks if Anthony really thinks Metis will go through with the marriage depending on the outcome. Anthony asks where Elisa heard that, and she replies that news spreads fast, especially with such a crazy decision. Anthony, however, struggles to believe it, but Elisa is sure they won't stand a chance against the elite class. After all, they have 3 summoners, and clearly Metis acted impulsively, which leads Anthony to defend her loudly. He continues by stating that Metis is the second strongest among them and should inspire them. However, Elisa knows that mere words won't change anything, and an argument breaks out between the two over their opinions about the princess. In the midst of their quarrel, a new voice appears, calling the scene heartbreaking. It's Demetrius Fonwell, a silver-ranked mage at level 28. Immediately, he comments that Her Highness is a constant source of problems, and he's tired of the pressure of competing for the throne. Thus, seeing the commoners rally behind someone like her makes the situation pathetic. He adds that it's all the princess's fault for imposing excessive expectations on ignorant people. Pointing around, he highlights a baker's son, a singer's daughter, and as if that weren't enough, even a woman from an adult establishment among them. Demetrius doesn't hold back, calling Annie an embarrassment to the academy and cruelly asking how much men pay for her. At that moment, Alistair, a level 15 bronze-ranked mage, steps forward. Demetrius seems delighted to see his older brother Aerie, an aristocrat with below-average levels. But Alistair defends Annie, saying she has nothing to be ashamed of because she did what she had to do to feed her siblings. In response, Demetrius scoffs that this is why Alistair, who lowers himself to the level of commoners, isn't strong. Alistair retorts, reminding Demetrius that in this academy it doesn't matter where someone comes from, as they all learn together, as the Queen said when founding the institution. Demetrius smugly counters, saying the Queen's true intentions will soon become clear. He claims that with the results of the duel, the princess will benefit the country by becoming the second lady of another kingdom. Thus, he warns that they'll see if this idea of studying together continues without the princess's protection. Mocking his older brother, who will also be on Medis' team, Demetrius sarcastically asks him to go easy on him. In the end, there's some truth to his words. The princess is involved in a battle she cannot win, and Elisa gave up her dream of becoming a singer to follow her. At that moment, everyone wonders why Medis is being so irrational. Annie knows that if she goes home now, she won't be able to support her family. She's not yet an adventurer and cannot live without the Academy's scholarship, which would lead to her expulsion. Still, Anthony respects the princess for always thinking of others first, creating the scholarship program that supports them. He genuinely wished for her to become queen, but this time even he was afraid. Faced with this, the three questioned whether the princess had given up her claim or if she truly believed she could succeed against such strong opponents. At this point, the boy couldn't understand anything that was happening. Then Alistair informed them that he had heard directly from the guards about the princess's determination. Because of this, Elisa asked why, and although it was just a rumor, it was said that Medis had revealed a trump card that even the elite couldn't compete with. Elsewhere, Greta Maverick, an instructor and supervisor in summoning, congratulated the hero on his admission to the academy. She mentioned hearing about Oswald's challenge and admired the courage, which Akira admitted he had accepted without thinking. In any case, Greta began to explain that the academy had a 4-year curriculum, with promotion exams held twice a year. There was a certified test for each rank, and the condition for graduation was to reach the rank of Gold Mage or higher within 4 years. Graduates received the honorary title of State Mage, and if they were commoners, also attained the status of Baron. They would also be permitted to marry into nobility, Greta added with a suspicious look, asking Akira what he thought. However, training at the academy wouldn't be easy, and those who failed to reach Gold Mage rank in 4 years were given only 1 additional year before being permanently expelled. On the way to the lecture, Akira thought about this expulsion rule and believed it might be a way out for him. However, he was already the princess's chosen one and was participating in a duel among aristocrats. It was clear that he had already done enough to ensure there was no turning back. In this case, Akira thought it might be better to excel, skip grades, and finish quickly. But obviously, that would push his plan of a mediocre reincarnation even further away. At that moment, he remembered everything the princess had put on the line and forced himself not to let such a thing happen. However, he still didn't know if he could win, but then Keiichi appeared, wanting to talk. As she approached, it turned out to be Medis again, there to apologize. Unfortunately, she had placed her friend in this crazy gamble without even asking him. And if he refused to participate, it was clear she would lose. Not wanting to pressure Akira, she explained that she didn't want to marry, which irritated him as it felt like emotional blackmail. Taking a deep breath, he asked what forces were on their side. This made the princess incredibly happy that Akira agreed, though he warned he couldn't promise a victory. That was enough to bring Medis to tears, prompting Kasia to point out that she was pressuring him too much. Medis then explained that she had been thinking for a long time about being an adult, and that maybe it would be better to marry to form an alliance. Kasia felt slightly disappointed, and Akira thought about the fact that Medis was only 15 years old. Losing her parents at such a young age and becoming the heir must have caused her to suppress her emotions. So Akira thought about wanting to help her because in some way he felt responsible. Because of his interference in their conversation, Medis had been placed in this position. Therefore, as a representative of the people of Stromheim, Akira declared that he would help Medis build a society where people were equal, regardless of status. And in the best way he could, he would support his old friend in becoming queen. Hearing this, Keiichi felt deeply grateful, but Akira reiterated that he couldn't guarantee victory. Still, Medis didn't care about anything else. She was happier now than she had ever been in her entire life. After a few moments of joy, Akira asked if she wouldn't blame him if they lost, prompting both girls to tell him to shut up. Later, the commoners saw for the first time the so-called strongest summoner chosen by the princess in the classroom. Meanwhile, at the academy, the prince uncovered who Akira Rainford's father was during his research. It appeared that Carl had severed all ties and gone into hiding among merchants, just as Medis had hoped. Because of this, the prince wondered if Ernera had known anything, but in any case, from what he had learned, her son was useless. Even if he had hidden powers, he couldn't compete with the aristocracy, so the prince could only marvel at the princess's recklessness. On his first day of class, the hero was incredibly nervous because all eyes were on him. Without delay, the instructor mentioned that, as everyone had heard, the hares had prepared a competition to promote the academy. So they decided to postpone the lesson for now to name the competitors all at once. By level order, the first to be called was Alistair Fawnwell, a level 15 bronze mage. Next were Annie, level 16, and Elisa, level 18, both also in the bronze rank. Finally, for the role of assistant captain, the elite summoner Anthony Green, level 21 in silver rank, was selected. As the only silver rank mage, the commoners were counting on him, making the boy anxious. But that wasn't all. Now they had a secret trump card recommended by the princess. This trump card was the genius summoner Akira Rainford, who was appointed as the true captain. Everyone applauded with hope, causing the peaceful life Akira had envisioned to collapse. As a reflex from his time as a popular mangaka, Akira stood up and waved at the others. This made Greta notice that he wasn't bad with public interaction, while the others found his behavior strange. However, it was merely an unconscious act from Akira. Later, the princess trained with her mentor, and as Metis' sword wavered, Keiichi asked if she was worried about the academy. Metis admitted that she felt she should have explained this situation in person, but Keiichi disagreed, saying the rumors about the powerful summoner were already spreading. If she involved herself further, there might be even more rumors, such as speculation about a relationship between the two. At this, Metis shouted in embarrassment, but for some reason, she seemed disappointed that she hadn't gone. Without further distractions, the two resumed their training, practically wrecking the castle in the process. Back at the academy, with the help of the Electro Crystal Crown, they could measure the amount of magical power. Anthony managed to reach 250, proving he deserved his silver rank. However, none of the others met expectations, as they couldn't even reach 200. Since the enemy camp would likely have many gold-ranked opponents, Elisa grew frustrated at being mocked. Nevertheless, there was still Akira left to measure, and although he tried to delay it, the instructor insisted that the allies needed to know their leader. Reluctantly, Akira approached the crystal. Since it was his first time, he was curious. Realizing it was inevitable, he decided to give it a try. As he touched the crystal, a light began to glow, revealing a gold rank, but the numbers continued climbing past platinum. Then, abruptly, the crystal stopped, classifying Akira as a level 7 mage with a total of 70 mana. Later, Elisa shouted, questioning how someone like that could be the trump card. With only 70 mana, Akira was weaker than even them. However, Alistair urged her to calm down. To him, it might be a case of a hidden talent revealed at a critical moment, but Elisa dismissed it, saying they were in a drama. After all, Akira wasn't even ranked as bronze, and she blamed the princess for this mess. Despite everything, Alistair believed it was Metis' plan. Still, given the circumstances, it seemed the princess simply wanted to get married. With that said, they wondered what would happen after the princess left and whether they could continue their studies. In the student dormitory, Anthony claimed the bottom bunk, and Akira had no issue taking the top one. On the other hand, Anthony offered Akira the locker, assuring him not to worry about anything. The position of captain, he explained, was likely just a simple formality, as they hadn't really consulted Akira before making the decision. Anthony speculated that Akira was only there because of the princess's expectations. Now their chances of victory seemed bleak. However, Akira interrupted to ask some questions about the academy. Anthony apologized for blaming him and offered to answer what he could. Ultimately, it wasn't about rank, but Akira hadn't expected his mana to be just 70. From the others' disappointed reactions, it was clear what those numbers meant. Akira realized that this world's tools couldn't accurately measure mana enhanced by elixirs. Deciding to keep his powers hidden for now, Akira focused on understanding the situation better. Anthony suggested they get to know each other. Introducing himself, Anthony expressed his happiness about having a roommate. Akira reciprocated, saying he looked forward to learning from him, which delighted Anthony. Later, Annie nervously asked what they would do in the competition, feeling that the princess had misjudged Akira. Anthony agreed. In their earlier conversation, Akira had shown little knowledge of magic and likely none about summoning. But even without a chance to win, they cannot give up because there is only one option. Hearing this, Annie cannot understand why the princess is doing this, but Anthony asks her to trust him for the first time, because he will definitely find a way to win, no matter the cost. Hearing everything, Demetrius appears, asking how a newly promoted silver rank mage plans to face them. With a look of disdain for both of them, the noble comments that he has already heard about the summoner fraud. In his view, something like this is obvious, so he suggests the commoners return to where they belong before further embarrassment. Moreover, Demetrius states that when Annie returns to the brothel, she will be the only one he visits, which enrages Anthony. In this case, the noble asks if Anthony really believes he can win, and though unsure, Anthony refuses to give up, especially in a fight against Demetrius, since they are both silver rank mages. Hearing this, Demetrius acknowledges that reaching silver rank is quite an achievement for a commoner. However, he declares that Anthony, in boasting, has forgotten to address the nobility with respect, which constitutes insolence. Therefore, regardless of the setting, Demetrius warns that this will have consequences. Later, Alistair celebrates the protagonist's admission to the academy with a dinner at his expense. Additionally, he tells Akira not to be discouraged by his mana measurements, but Elisa harshly points out the burden Akira has become. Changing the subject, Akira asks if nobles are really that strong, to which Elisa replies that most of them are gold rank, causing Alistair to call her pessimistic. In this case, with the mention of gold rank, Akira asks how many creatures they can summon, leaving everyone in shock. Elisa becomes furious at Akira for not even knowing this, but after scolding him, she explains that they can summon at least one medium-level creature. While Elisa puts this on a pedestal, Akira wonders if it is truly that impressive. Thus, he asks if anyone can summon an advanced creature. Laughing at him, Elisa says that forming a contract with such a creature is impossible. Moreover, summoned beasts consume mana, which would leave anyone exhausted. This is why gold and platinum ranks are treated with such high regard. In summary, there are 3 such summoners, so Elisa asks if Akira understood. But when they hear no response, the two realize they are truly doomed, and Elisa apologizes for putting so much pressure on him. At that moment, Annie enters the room, crying and panicking, startling everyone with her desperation. During her analysis, the professor realizes why the princess was so enthusiastic about a summoner with only 70 mana. In reality, this happened before. There seems to have been an error due to the boy's absurdly high mana quantity. This is a rare case because the crystal's limit is enormous and a 4-digit number indicates platinum rank, but Akira's numbers started with 0 followed by 70. Therefore, it might indicate a 5-digit mana level, something extraordinary. With this in mind, it's easy to understand why his identity was hidden. But just then, Alistair bursts in, shouting for Maverick's help. This is because Anthony is in critical condition, brutally injured. Both of his arms are broken, and there may be internal organ damage. The professor agrees that this is bad, which infuriates the students at her superficial diagnosis. As a team member was attacked by an opponent, Elisa argues that the competition should be cancelled. But the professor explains that she cannot override the prince's orders, so the competition will proceed. Hearing this, Akira thinks the nobles are incredibly cruel for doing such things with impunity. Meanwhile, Annie cries, saying Anthony knew he couldn't win but remained steadfast to uphold his honor. In the end, he said this was the price for the princess's kindness and dedication. But such actions would be forgiven by those in power, and Annie begged them to stop hurting him. She pleaded on her knees, saying she would do anything for Anthony to participate in tomorrow's competition normally. While they listened, everyone grew angrier, but Amy confessed it felt like she was expecting such humiliation. Immediately after, they broke Anthony's bones horribly. Hearing all this, Akira tries to control himself and not let his emotions take over because this is common among aristocrats. But at that moment, Anthony stands up, saying he will still participate, thanking everyone for the healing. Obviously, his friends insist that he cannot get up yet, but he displays remarkable resolve. Anthony declares that if they wanted to take him out of the game, they should have broken his legs instead of his arms, leaving everyone shocked and Akira deep in thought. In contrast, the professor is amazed to see her students' determination, and with his agreement, the two decide to proceed with the task they discussed earlier. In a magic circle, Anthony stands at the center while the others watch. The hero observes that this is a true ritual for forming a contract, wondering if Anthony will be okay given his injuries. Regardless, the professor instructs them to begin the transfer contract, and Annie shouts, warning that it's too dangerous. The other two agree, pointing out that Anthony has just reached the silver rank and is attempting a contract with a creature above his level. At this moment, there is a risk of running out of mana, but Anthony displays an artifact given to him by the professor, his pride as a summoner. With this, the amount of mana needed to summon powerful creatures is reduced by 30%. Naturally, Annie panics, but the professor continues the ritual, seeing that her student is just like her. Regardless, this task will not be easy, and at the moment of summoning, everyone feels the surge of power. Determined to fight, Anthony demands the spirit Jin submit to him. With the summoning complete, Anthony is left severely injured, but the professor is astonished that he managed to finish it. Alistair, meanwhile, is thrilled, and Annie becomes emotional, hitting Anthony for taking such a big risk. Akira, on the other hand, watches the whole scene in surprise, realizing for the first time how difficult a contract is. Smiling, Maverick declares that Anthony is now a mid-class summoner, and Anthony credits it all to her guidance. However, the professor reminds him not to forget that, as this is a mid-level spirit, it will require a lot of mana. Even with the artifact, Anthony will always be on the brink of exhaustion, but he says he is ready for that, because just having the chance to win tomorrow is enough to take any risk. The next day, the official competition at the Magic Academy begins, and all the students are present to witness the duel. As a result, some people comment that they're expecting an entertaining show, while elsewhere, a gentleman expresses his pleasure in meeting Prole. This makes the girl a little flustered at the flattery, though her colleagues still treat her with some superiority. Everyone says it's an honor to work alongside her, but the gentleman hopes today's match won't disappoint her. In response, Prole assures him there's no need to worry because she already knows who will win. The gentleman agrees that the noble team is indeed stronger and is curious to see how long the others will last. But since he misphrased his comment, Prole clarifies that she's curious how long the noble team will endure. The gentleman politely remarks that Prole is mistaken, but the mage stands firm in her conviction that in this competition, the normal team will prevail. Before the competition begins, a woman is irritated and questions whether the princess is desperate. To her, it makes no sense for a competition where one side has only a single silver-ranked participant. It's clear the princess admires common people, but she shouldn't have made such a fuss over that summoner. As a result, the woman declares they will put an end to this quickly and volunteers to go first. Another girl wishes Patricia good luck, but at that moment, someone else steps forward to take her place. This person, known for bullying the weak, is the second son of the Fonwell family. On the Allies' side, the professor organizes the vanguard and explains that Asura was made captain as a decoy. The real captain will be the assistant, Anthony, which even the hero agrees with. Initially, the protagonist wants to gather as much information as possible, though he remains worried about how the vice captain will manage. Finally, Anthony calls everyone together to deliver a final message. He tells them that if each of them faces this challenge with honor, they will surely find a way to victory. With this motivation, Princess Medisfina's team enters the arena, surprising the audience. As the event begins, the announcer introduces the participants in today's competition. Under the blue banner are the representatives of the common people. In the intermediate positions are Aloy and Patricia, both gold-ranked, alongside Demetrius. Meanwhile, under the red banner, the nobility is represented by Captain Carius, also gold-ranked, and assistant captain, Pranny Kreese, similarly ranked. Upon hearing the lineup, the princess is delighted that Asura is the captain, commenting that he likely wants to explore the other team's capabilities. However, he could have easily won if he had gone first. With that, the prince remarks that he is excited to see how her secret summoner will surprise him. In response, Metis reminds Oswell not to forget his promise, though he shows little commitment. Regardless, the princess tells the hero to act as he sees fit, as she will take full responsibility. Before the match begins, Demetrius passes by the commoners group, hurling insults, and shamelessly tells Anthony that when they lose, Annie will return to the brothel. This makes the hero think of him as just a generic villain, but despite his irritation, Asura calms himself, knowing it's time to see what aristocrats are like. After the introductions, Pranny laughs at how defeated the children look and regrets not going first. However, at that moment, she notices Prol Brace in the stands. She immediately approaches to disturb the mage, and Demetrius also joins to flaunt his nobility. Though Prol maintains her composure, she is deeply irritated since she is also a commoner. Regardless, the nobles continue to praise her before the competition begins. Prol, thinking it over, decides to play along, telling the aristocrats not to worry as everyone will have their chance to prove their worth. Without further delay, the trumpets sound and the hero thinks everything is unnecessarily extravagant while the rest prepare. With the princess observing, the first match is set to be Demetrius against Alistair. Oswald comments on how sad it is for a noble who identifies as a commoner, and Metis knows he must feel inferior. Pranny yells that the boy's audacity will make him lose everything, and the event begins. Demetrius mocks, asking if his brother hears the voices condemning him as a disgrace to the Fonwell family. Alistair, disappointed, says he once loved his little brother, ripping his shirt to reveal a well-trained physique. Naturally, this surprises everyone, but the warrior wastes no time attacking. Demetrius screams that it's inappropriate as he prepares a spell, but Alistair dodges all of them. Unexpectedly, the commoner is incredibly fast and the noble can barely keep up. To everyone's surprise, Alistair manages to land a wrestling move. To the spectators' astonishment, the elder brother slams Demetrius to the ground and punches his face so hard it cracks the floor. Unexpectedly, the fight seems over, causing varied reactions among the audience. But before Alistair can finish, Demetrius manages to defend himself with a barrier spell. Having used earth magic on his hand, Alistair couldn't land his attack, and now, with hand-to-hand combat failing, the younger brother retaliates. He uses earth magic to create a column that slams into Alistair's stomach. The damage is considerable, and as his allies worry, Oswald boasts about the superiority of magic. The noble prepares another spell, declaring this to be true earth magic. Anthony shouts at Alistair not to use his body for defense, but it's too late. A column of earth rises beneath Alistair, hitting his chin. While the allies panic, Demetrius exudes confidence. As Alistair cannot yet read mana flows, Prol accepts the outcome, and at that moment, the professor asks if Alistair has already been defeated. The mage then realizes she is facing Maverick, the strongest necromancer in the East. Quickly, the allies rush to take their comrade to the infirmary, but Alistair's condition is dire. Everyone is shocked by someone treating their brothers so brutally, and Annie feels useless, while Anthony struggles to hold back tears. Without further discussion, the guards carry Alistair away, and as Asura expected, the nobles are taking things to extremes. In the second duel, Annie has her clothes torn by Demetrius, who mockingly says he'll be gentler with her. Pranny finds the humiliation amusing, but her friend remarks on how disrespectful it is. To the allies, this is truly inhumane, and the professor comments on how many different spells Demetrius uses. Prol, however, believes the noble is adding enchantments to himself since controlling 3 elements is rare. This demonstrates what happens when emphasis is placed on the number of spells rather than innate talent. Above all, Prol notes the lack of rigorous training at the academy, which was established to defeat Odars. As the region is home to the Mayan family of heroes, the strongest of all, there seems to be no reason to develop magic in such a place. But an enemy exists against which even the hero's power will not be enough. The undead odors, which always regenerate immediately after a physical attack, multiply and drain life. In this case, the professor agrees, stating that it all started with the death of Sword Mayan. Even though he saved his wife, it was a defeat for the heroes. They was also ignorant to think that the only way to damage them was with magic, and that their numbers would grow as they absorbed vital energy. The problem is that they cannot be defeated with insignificant magic. Fatal wounds can only be caused by the strongest spells of a specific attribute or by attacks from advanced creatures. Therefore, many mages are not needed against them, leading Prol to suggest that the academy should separate students into advanced magic and advanced summoning groups. Moreover, if someone capable of mastering both were to emerge, that person could very well be the savior of the world. Back in the duel, Demetrius taunts Annie, asking why she isn't crying and apologizing again, threatening that she'll end up completely exposed if she doesn't. However, Annie takes the bold step of removing her cloak, leaving everyone embarrassed. She then declares that if the noble pervert wanted to see her naked so badly, he should have just asked. In the past, people came to where Annie worked to invite her to the academy because of her gift with fire magic. The scholarship she received was the reason she came, knowing that earning her diploma could change her life. The noble students, in addition to their natural talent, constantly refine their abilities through the fruits of wealth and influence. This had a direct impact on Annie's results, even though she worked hard in her studies. Still, she didn't give up and pressed forward, thanks to her companions, who were just as ordinary as she was. Through all the difficulties, Annie made it this far and realized the most important thing the academy had given her. It wasn't the skills of a mage or the promise of success in life, but her dear friends. With that, she declares that if Demetrius wants to mock instead of compete, she wouldn't serve him a beer even for 10,000 coins. Clearly, the noble becomes irritated. Both prepare their spells to collide. Annie's allies are deeply concerned, while Pranny finds Annie's audacity to compete in firepower amusing. However, Prol notices that Annie might have a chance, and the two fire spells collide. At that moment, a storm of flames rises, and the professor notes that Annie's strength is inferior. But Prol observes that Annie's magic was cast first. Apparently, the noble's fire magic is an additional enchantment. Thus, Annie's magic should be superior. However, as a silver rank, Demetrius has far more mana. In this situation, the mage realizes Demetrius is using mana enhancement, and Annie feels the impact of this unfair advantage. Her allies try to offer support, while Pranny happily comments that the doping is working. The enhancement comes from a 50-year-old mandrake root, and Demetrius consumes 3 sprouts, filling him with magic. Although Annie's fire is strong, the odds start turning against her. Lacking enough mana, Annie succumbs to the pressure and takes the spell head-on. Her allies avert their gaze, unwilling to watch, while Demetrius, victorious, mocks her condition. In response, Annie acknowledges that her fire was stronger but only lost due to the mana disparity. For this reason, she refuses to accept defeat and vows to win next time, which Prol supports. Without delay, her friends rush to help her, and Anthony praises her performance. However, all Demetrius can think about is making her regret the way she looked at him. Pranny then asks if Demetrius is tired and wants her to take his place. But with a murderous glare, the noble declares that he doesn't need help because he intends to crush every one of these pests. Elisa is next to fight, and she is warned not to attempt the impossible. She responds that she isn't foolish enough to need such advice because a fight like this isn't worth it. In the past, Elisa dreamed of being radiant like the light on stage, believing that art was her true path. This is why, even after arriving at the academy, she didn't dedicate herself much. For her, being a mage was simply a path imposed by the country, and this competition only serves to feed egos. She is now prepared to give up. Hearing this, Demetrius tells her to stop resisting senselessly because the winner is already clear. Moreover, all stubbornness has its limits, and Elisa's persistence is starting to irritate Demetrius. Despite her convictions, for some reason, Elisa decided to fight until the very end. To Anthony, it seems she just wanted him to stay out of the way, as she always complained. Others also told her to stop because she was running out of mana and in terrible condition. This led Demetrius to point out that even her allies were telling her to give up. He then offered to let her quit now, but if she didn't, he threatened to break her neck with his next attack. For some reason, Elisa simply smiled, leaving the noble confused. Preparing a spell, Elisa told him that she knew he was acting this way because he was also getting tired. In response, Demetrius countered her spell with one of his own using earth magic. The two collided in an intense explosion, causing injuries on both sides. Her friends panicked, while even the enemies were surprised by Elisa's strength. To her, it didn't matter how aristocratic a person was. She could tell that with so much mana, Demetrius must have done something before the fight. But even if she protested, no one would believe her. At that moment, Elisa realized she might be overthinking things. Then a spell struck her directly, causing her allies great concern, while her opponent reveled in his triumph. Among the competitors so far, Demetrius praised Elisa for making him sweat, but he grabbed her hair, saying her tricks had run out. Her allies watched in horror as her friends screamed desperately for her to give up, but Elisa had grown tired of it all. Initially, Alyssa had wanted to attend the Magic Academy and leave her music school behind. However, her father had told her it was a royal decree, and out of respect for him, he had asked her to at least graduate. At that time, she was selfish and couldn't go a day without blaming the princess. The idea of giving common people a chance seemed ridiculous to Alyssa, and she would want to get expelled. But when she joined the academy, she found friends who became trustworthy companions. Through her studies, she realized that everyone else was in a worse situation than her, yet none of them lost their kindness or their ability to make others smile. In an unexpected move, Alyssa grabbed Demetrius's wrist, shocking everyone in the audience. Just like Demetrius, Alyssa had always been self-centered and had never worked hard to achieve things, as she only thought about what she wanted. That's why she couldn't give up now. She needed to repay her colleagues' support by forcing Demetrius to use more power, easing the pressure on Anthony. This enraged Demetrius like never before, but Alyssa prepared a spell to end it all. Unexpectedly, she used it to drain mana, revealing her trump card to everyone. Enraged, Demetrius struck her face with great force, horrifying the audience. He then beat her, shouting that he hadn't permitted her to drain his magic. Yet Alyssa continued to drain his mana, deeply moving her friends. At this point, Alyssa had accepted her defeat and clung desperately to the hope of giving her comrades a better chance in the next battle. No matter what, Demetrius declared he would kill her since she refused to stop. Annie screamed, crying as the attack unfolded. Sadly, Alyssa was struck down, much to the dismay of her friends. However, even unconscious, she refused to release Demetrius' arm. Demetrius commented that she was lucky to still be alive. Annie quickly rushed onto the battlefield while the nobles watched this display of determination. Meanwhile, Asura told Anthony that he needed to ask a favor of him. The favor was to switch places, but Anthony warned that someone with only 70 mana wouldn't stand a chance against Demetrius. Regardless, Asura decided to enter the arena because he could no longer watch. With certainty, he resolved that at least Demetrius would be defeated. The professor announced that Anthony was the strongest in the class. At this moment, Alistair appeared, prompting Asura to ask about his injuries. Thanks to recovery magic, Alistair was fine, but Alyssa had even suffered a cervical vertebra fracture. Nevertheless, with healing magic, she would recover, and although Alistair wanted to stay by her side, she had asked him to watch the fight instead. Alyssa, determined, appeared in the arena despite everyone's concern about her condition. Alistair remarked that it didn't seem right as rest was necessary, but Alyssa insisted that Anthony would make her pain worthwhile. Thus, the fourth match begins. The noble asks if the boy is feeling well since his friends did their best to weaken him. Additionally, there is still one remaining, but the true opponent is this one. Demetrius then activates a firepower spell he had been saving for this moment. It's an intermediate level fire magic, and everyone is shocked at what it might cause. Excited, the boy shouts because he knows Anthony won't be able to win using only low-level summons. He then activates his medium-level fire spell, causing wind to rise throughout the area, and Demetrius feels proud. However, unexpectedly, the commoner responds with a summon of the same level, much to the noble's dismay. Confident in his abilities, the vice-captain asserts that his opponent won't be able to defeat his new spirit Jin. The enemies, naturally, are left speechless. The boy asks why they're so surprised. As a silver-ranked summoner, it makes sense for him to have such a contract. He orders his enemy to accept the incoming attack, and as everyone focuses on him, Anthony prepares a spell. These are the Forbidden Wind Blades, a medium-class wind magic. That's why Anthony told him to accept it. He knew Demetrius was running out of mana. However, the noble refused to make it a joke and raise a stone shield. Impressively, to the professor, he was also able to create magical barriers, which led Prol to realize he was obsessed with quantity. Nevertheless, Amarga notes that it won't help because wind spirits like Jin are far more powerful than that. Thus, the rock shield crumbles. Demetrius yells at the boy to admit that such a summon is impossible. Even with his pedigree, Demetrius cannot accept losing to a commoner. It's something he won't admit. Regardless, whether it was Anthony's skill or not, the defenses are shattered once more, and the boy prepares a decisive strike to prove his power. However, like a true coward, Demetrius surrenders before being hit. Obviously, Asura and Prol think he won't be forgiven so easily, while Pranny finds her comrade pathetic. An explosion follows, and to the princess's surprise, the attack was cancelled at the last second. At this moment, everyone sees the coward that this noble truly is. Demetrius asks why the spell was withdrawn, if it was out of pity or to humiliate him. However, Anthony responds, asking what he's talking about since Demetrius himself just surrendered, and it's forbidden to harm an opponent afterward. Furthermore, Anthony extends his hand, reminding him that this is an official competition at the Stromheim Academy of Magic. With mixed reactions, Asura thinks that Anthony truly embodies a shounen manga protagonist. Pranny, on the other hand, finds it appalling that Anthony is pretending to be Knave. Refusing help to stand, Demetrius leaves, defeated. The princess feels overjoyed, declaring that this is what can be called a true victory. However, her brother comments that this is nothing more than a child's game. Menace asks if the prince is belittling the fight, but he says no and adds that he simply feels sorry for the commoners who don't understand who they are. They also don't understand what gives nobles their title or what it means to face one in battle. From birth, Nobles gain key skills for warfare and are tasked with protecting the royal family while managing the people. On a battlefield where every move determines life or death, an unqualified person in a high position leads their allies to ruin. That's what it means to be an aristocrat, and Aloy says he cannot tolerate weak people causing problems for others. Some are surprised, while others are disappointed, but the prince insists that this is what being a noble entails. The fact is, occupying a position of great responsibility requires competence. Thus, the fifth duel between the blue and red banners begins. Frankly, the boy cannot understand the reason behind so much altruism in a battle with a predetermined outcome. The princess is already in a losing scenario as Marion will force her to abandon politics. The opponent asks why he had such a hypocritical smile, but the boy says that what he's doing is not just for the princess but also for their future. He recalls what the noble said about weak people and resolves to show him what miracles can be achieved through determination. However, before he could do anything, Aloy surprisingly summons a golem. To everyone's utter despair, the golem crushes Anthony into the ground like a monster. At this moment, Anthony's friends cry out in despair and Annie threatens to step in to save him. Anthony, for his part, already expected this outcome but didn't know Aloy would be so fast, or that the gap between a gold rank and himself would be so vast. The princess, on the other hand, is impressed and Keisha explains that it's an intermediate level golem. Faced with this, the representatives of the nobility are disappointed and Anthony's friends admit defeat, much to the prince's delight. The boy hadn't expected such a significant difference, and in his mind he can only apologize, feeling that, in the end, he achieved nothing. More than anything, he apologizes to the princess, but suddenly the golem's foot begins to move closer, even after the fight was called off. Anthony is utterly desperate, and before it strikes, Aloy says he'll make the boy remember today's punishment. However, an even stronger golem appears, destroying Aloy's golem and preventing the cruelty. Everyone is stunned by what they're seeing, and Prole in particular becomes thrilled. After tossing Anthony aside, Akira announces that Anthony already accepted defeat and that he'll now be the next opponent. Moreover, Akira asks Aloy if he truly believes common people are annoying because he knew someone similar who used to make similar judgments in the past. During his time as a mangaka, Akira humiliated less talented writers, influencing them to give up. Using his own experience, Akira furiously declares that such an attitude is nothing but arrogance. That Aloy believes that because he has had money and talent since childhood, he has the right to look down on others. In response, Akira declares that he'll show the noble what true talent worthy of a high position looks like. Finally, the princess feels hopeful and shouts about their chance to win. The prince, however, cannot understand what kind of summoning technique doesn't require a circle. He calls for Ermera, but she remains calm, confusing the prince further. Meanwhile, Metis asks her brother what he thinks about it, claiming her summoner will face all the gold ranks and change the course of the academy. Anthony, baffled, asks what's happening, and Akira apologizes for lying and prioritizing his own comfort. However, from now on, he promises not to hide his power or run away from responsibility. With determination, Akira yells that he'll handle the rest and defeat those jerks. Naturally, his allies can't believe such a bold statement, but they quickly remember that Akira summoned a mid-level golem. Pranny, on the other hand, shouts that his interference is against the rules, though for some reason, she seems deeply afraid. That's because when Akira prepared to fight, Pranny realized he wasn't just some iron-ranked man. Prole confirms the error in the crystal's measurement, claiming that this is only the tip of the iceberg. Maverick expresses concern about Pranny's power, as she was the first to notice Akira's true strength. However, Prole insists that the aristocrats won't win. After all, Akira has more mana than her and is at a platinum rank. Back to the complaints, Pranny demands Aloy call for a violation, but the noble admits he was also in the wrong. Thus, the sixth fight begins with Aloy still confident that he'll demonstrate the difference between the two. Analyzing the situation, Aloy realizes the information about his opponent was false, but summoning a golem like that requires a lot of mana. The noble asks if Ahira can keep up with his golem. Unexpectedly, the protagonist's golem uses a sweeping kick. Naturally, everyone is shocked and Aloy is forced to face reality. Akira, however, continues, yawning as if bored before preparing to finish things. With the previous sweep, Akira's golem lifts the noble's golem off the ground and throws it far away, shattering its head. Spectators from all sides are in awe, and Elisa cannot comprehend what's happening. Seeing how Akira's golem moves like a human, no one can help but be impressed. Pranny and Patricia begin to feel real fear as Akira's golem speeds up as if receiving a buff. The professor comments that such a buff is rare due to its high mana consumption, and Prole agrees, pointing out that the crystal misrepresented Akira's mana as 70, confusing their opponents. Additionally, the proud gold-ranked mages can't replicate such movements. Aloy grows desperate, questioning what kind of tricks Akira is using, and the allies remark that Akira's golem's legs seem to float in the air. At this point, the noble can't do anything against this iron rank, but by now, Anthony wonders if Akira's rank was ever correct in the first place. During the final fight, the hero thought deeply and now realized that his opponent's mid-level golem was actually very slow. He then cuts off one of the monster's arms, leaving the spectators in shock. Even the princess, who had known him since childhood, is surprised by this feat. Katia warns that it's too early to be impressed because she still hasn't seen Akira's full power. She recalls witnessing an advanced class golem move faster than a fire dragon, which makes Oswald break out in cold sweat. Back in the fight, a noble realizes it's not just speed. Akira's golem is inherently superior to his own. Now, everyone understands they've been tricked, and the earlier fights were a setup to lower their guard. Furthermore, Pranny is certain that the protagonist is a professional summoner specializing in golems. Extremely frustrated by this humiliation, the noble restores his golem and activates multiple buffs at once, declaring he will end this now. Eloy pours everything he has into speed and endurance, but unexpectedly, Akira's golem leaps into the air. Akira remarks that Eloy's skills are something to be proud of, but when someone is blinded by their own talent, their cruelty turns against them. He then declares that Eloy will learn the lesson Akira had to learn the hard way and strikes the enemy golem with a devastating blow. With the monster destroyed, the audience is left in awe, and Elisa cannot comprehend who Akira truly is. At this moment, everyone realizes that an average-ranked student just destroyed a mid-level golem with a single strike. Having never seen a monster move like this, the prince speculates that Akira's golem might even be of a superior class. Katia assures the princess not to worry, and Metis replies that she never doubted him, because Akira had always been the hero she had feelings for, and the fact that he's fighting for her now feels like a dream. Faced with his defeat, Eloy reflects on how foolish he was to pour all this magic into his golem, only to see it destroyed. However, he also realizes that he may be facing an insurmountable gap. Meanwhile, Akira's allies cheer, acknowledging that the princess's words about Akira's strength were true. Anthony advises everyone to pay attention to Akira's golem, speculating it could even be of silver or gold rank. Annie, on the other hand, is overjoyed and remarks that Anthony was right. Because they didn't give up, they witnessed a miracle. After the fight ends, Demetrius questions why his teammate left, and Eloy admits that he's no match for Akira. Additionally, Eloy believes there's no need to push himself since they still have trained specialists on their side. Next, the 7th fight begins with Patricia facing off against the captain of the commoner team, Akira. Since Patricia is a gold-class mage, Akira's allies feel this might be a challenging battle. Feeling the pressure, Patricia yells that she's a gold-class mage and won't lose this fight. She unleashes her water cannon at full power, an advanced-level magic activated with a simple spell. Of course, she uses this attack knowing water magic is effective against golems. Unfortunately for her, Akira's golem blocks the attack effortlessly. At this point, Pranny loses all hope as defending against advanced water magic is unimaginable. Pearl explains that the enormous difference in magical power between Akira and Patricia nullifies any attribute advantages. In other words, Akira's mid-level golem is so powerful that it compensates for the elemental disadvantage. After using so much magic, Patricia needs a few seconds to recharge for another attack, giving Akira the chance to advance and end the fight. However, running out of mana, Patricia simply surrenders, leaving Akira slightly disappointed despite securing another victory. Pranny yells at Patricia for giving up, but Patricia argues there's no way to win if her magic is ineffective, telling Pranny to see for herself. Akira's allies grow increasingly excited with their streak of victories, starting to believe they might win the competition. Frustrated by the hopeful commoners, Pranny declares that they will crush their dreams into pieces. Since subduing a summoned creature requires immense energy, there's always the problem of mana consumption and the summoning contract itself. One of the most challenging tasks in the summoning profession is contracting creatures of different attributes, as it causes an imbalance in the summoner's body. However, some are born talented enough to handle this, as is the case with Pranny. As a member of the first dynasty of summoners, some speculate that Akira doesn't stand a chance against her. And the prince mocks the situation, claiming that even an advanced creature cannot prevail. However, when Oswald notices Meda's calm expression, he warns about Pranny's talent. But since Pranny isn't even the strongest in the prince's group, Metis confidently states that victory is assured and that her confidence is not unfounded. She adds that she is considering her brother's trump card, which is why she believes they will win. For the first time, the prince begins to suspect that accepting the duel might have been a planned move. Back on the battlefield, Demetrius shouts from the arena, praising the princess for her efforts but declaring that it will all end here. Standing before her opponent, Pranny boasts that her next summoning will not only destroy Akira's golem but will also crush him. Pranny, though surprised to find herself facing a professional in golems, proclaims herself a true summoner with pride. She summons 2 advanced spirits simultaneously, one of water and one of fire, opposing attributes, leaving Akira's allies stunned. Demetrius, filled with excitement, urges Akira to summon his golem and begins envisioning his victory. Frankly, Akira thinks he could easily handle these enemies by sketching the beasts from his book. Alternatively, he could simply copy the 2 spirits since he has enough mana and is observing them firsthand. He also considers sketching and modifying a beast based on his own illustrations. Ultimately, Akira concludes that as long as his perception doesn't violate the laws of this world, He can summon anything if done correctly. Since Katya and Prol already know about his abilities, there's no reason to hide anymore. Breaking the enemy's spirit is now the priority. Thus, Akira uses his drawing ability to summon Salamandra and Leviathan, shocking both Pranny and everyone else. The students in the stands question what they are seeing, while Metis wonders if Akira is joking. What Akira just summoned are divine beasts, creatures Metis had only ever seen in books. Realizing that a commoner possesses contracts with such entities, Pranny falls to her knees, convinced it's an illusion. The prince stands up in anger and demands Metis explain who this commoner is. The princess responds that she told him from the start. This is the hero of her memories, the one she always admired. He is far superior to the aristocrats and undeniably the strongest among the commoners. Pranny, now certain it's not an illusion, begins questioning if these types of beasts even form contracts with humans. Believing the Kira to be merely a golem specialist, she asks who he has a contract with, and Prol bursts into laughter. Unable to contain herself, Prol announces that what they discover about Akira isn't even the full story, because for him, there are no attribute restrictions or compatibility limits. That's because Akira might be the only one in the world capable of summoning without a contract. Hearing this, Oswald's expression finally changes. While the students are stunned, the professor tries to comprehend what's happening, and others remark that they've never seen anything like this. If contracts aren't necessary, it means Akira can summon any beast in existence whenever he pleases. If true, the students believe it explains everything, and they commend the princess for her brilliant choice. Katya, thrilled by the rising reputation of the princess, feels hopeful as victory now seems within reach. However, the prince grows furious, displeased with how things are turning out, as this could become more than just a loss for the nobles. It could elevate Metis' popularity to unprecedented heights. Back on the battlefield, Pranny kneels in defeat while Akira remarks that it's better to avoid unnecessary conflict. He declares that he will end the fight with one attack from each beast to make the power difference clear. Combining the attacks of Salamandra and Leviathan, Akira creates a fiery water blast. Even at minimal power, the attack leaves Pranny utterly terrified. As she considers surrendering, she opens her eyes to see both of her advanced class spirits completely destroyed. It's absurd that Akira can obliterate 2 advanced spirits with a single attack, but the prince realizes it's no illusion. Everyone now understands that these divine beasts aren't illusions, they are real, and this marks the beginning of an extraordinary student's journey. With another victory, the spectators go wild, chanting for the summoner of the people. Summoning divine beasts without a contract is a groundbreaking innovation and a feat that will be remembered in the history of Stromheim. Prol, meanwhile, smiles as the noble team has nothing to say, and facing her opponent, Akira compliments her summoning skills. However, since everything is already decided and he doesn't want to hurt her further, he kindly asks the girl to surrender, leaving her flustered but agreeing. The commoners erupt in excitement, while the nobles grow increasingly worried. Katya believes there's no one in the country who can compete with Akira, but the princess warns it's still too early to relax. She points out that the prince's determined gaze reveals someone willing to fight to the end despite the difference in power. This means he still has something that could turn the tide. And so the final match of the day begins, the captain of the red team versus the captain of the blue team. Prol is excited because she'll get to see Carius R. Grantchester in action. The prince's trump card, Carius, represents the noble team, and Metis wonders how he will fare against Akira. It's impressive that Carius is still able to step into the ring after witnessing Akira's power, but Prol suspects he's putting on an act. Oswald smiles and tells Metis that he's also curious to see how this duel will end. However, Prol has complete faith in Akira and boldly claims she'll bet all her money on him. Carius is a gold-class summoner from the kingdom of Schaffhausen on the Royd continent, brought in by the prince to strengthen the academy. The princess, however, opposed her brother's focus on aristocratic interests and knew she'd eventually have to face him. Yet, she senses something strange. Despite seeing Akira's overwhelming power, there's still a tense atmosphere. Initially, she thinks it's just a bluff, but she's unsure, and Anthony knows exactly who this person is. The professor is surprised by the noble's persistence, and Prol remarks that it's simply to maintain their reputation. From the stands, Pranny declares that it's impossible to defeat Master Akira, leaving her allies puzzled. The hero recognizes that his opponent is strong, but he finds it hard to believe anyone can create a summoning stronger than his own. Since Carius hasn't given up, it's clear there's a strategy in play. The spectators remain unaware of this and continue betting on Akira's victory. Suddenly, a medium-level golem is summoned to attack Akira, who counters with Leviathan. But that's not all. New attacks are launched, leaving everyone stunned. In addition to the medium golem, 2 supreme golems are summoned, making it 3 at once. To counter the divine beasts, each will face a matching opponent, while the medium golem targets Akira directly. Keisha realizes the 3 monsters are a distraction and yells to warn Akira, but Carius moves in too quickly. Understanding his opponent's strength, Akira targets Carius directly, aiming to cut the problem off at its root. Leviathan's attack closes in, and even at minimal power, Akira believes it will be enough. With immense force, the attack descends upon the noble, but to everyone's shock except the prince, Carius manages to defend against it. Kachia can't believe Carius stopped the attack from a divine beast, something that should require at least a platinum rank. However, this is the legendary defensibility of the Ryan family, one of the 7 heroic families. Realizing this, Metis panics. The prince decides to reveal the truth, explaining that Carius is a direct descendant of the Ryan bloodline, from the glorious sword of the Holy Church on the Roid continent, Lord Carius Ryan Grantchester. Naturally, Akira's allies are stunned by the revelation, and Akira himself is deeply impressed. It's not every day one encounters a member of the heroic families, and Demetrius praises the prince's strategy. Initially, Carius was brought to the academy as an excellent summoner, but has also proven to be a magical swordsman, which concerns Prol slightly. The professor, however, is eager to see what a mage can do against such an opponent. This is because Ryan is primarily a frontline swordsman, while mages who rely on others are at a disadvantage. Nevertheless, as a member of the heroic families, who surpass even platinum-class warriors, the outcome is still uncertain. Akira feels irritated about being missiled, but knows he can't let the enemy get close and orders Leviathan to attack. Unexpectedly, Carius dodges everything, leaving Prol and Greta uneasy. Annie suggests that since it's a magic competition, swordsmen might be against the rules. However, the prince responds that Carius is merely demonstrating his magical swordsmanship and won't be using a real weapon. With a malicious smile, Oswald claims there's nothing wrong with that. As the target is small and fast, it becomes difficult to track his movements or stop him. Additionally, the hero cannot keep up with the magical swordsman's speed. At that moment, Carius advances, attacking with a sword aura and creating multiple magical blades. Proudly, Oswald comments that his representative has an excellent fighting style and asks Metis how long she thinks Akira will last. After dodging, Akira recalls his sword training with Arya, who had saved him once before. However, Carius is a descendant of the heroic bloodline, and Akira believes he will lose if he continues this way. Arya had once advised him that in moments like these, he should summon a beast in a form usable for close combat. It's true that drawing items like swords which lack magical power is impossible, but that doesn't mean there are no other options. In this case, Akira summons multiple small golems, making the princess assume he's betting on quantity. Prol, however, believes it's not a good decision, and Oswald doesn't understand why. The answer comes quickly, as the golems suddenly undergo a transformation and turn into flying stone swords. In the end, Akira's plan was to summon golems and transform them into swords. When Metis saw Akira altering a summoned beast even as a child, she couldn't believe it. She was left speechless and thrilled by this challenge to the laws of the world. Now seeing the same thing again, it becomes evident that Akira's power is not only far beyond that of an ordinary summoner, but may even surpass the entirety of the heroic bloodline. Proudly, Metis asks the prince what he sees. Is it representatives of nobility and commoners, or magicians fighting for the prince and princess? At this moment, many think it's a trap, but transcending social status, a ray of hope emerges. This is Akira, the beacon of light who will save the world from the threat of the Obers and Metisfina's principal summoner. Even Carius recognizes the genius of his opponent, and Anthony can't believe humans are capable of such feats. Praneve, on the other hand, has fallen in love with Akira. But the descendants of the heroic bloodline refuse to give up. The protagonist knows the strategy to distract him with a golem and finish the fight in close combat. However, he counters with sword attacks, astonishing the spectators with their speed. The nobles accuse him of cheating, and a sudden explosion occurs, but the stone golem defends its master. Despite this, Akira continues launching countless stone weapons without stopping. Carius becomes worried, realizing that while Akira fires swords with his right hand, he's summoning more with his left. At this point, there's no chance of getting closer, making Carius wonder if the boy's mana is infinite. Encouraged by his comrades, Akira presses on, and while the princess grows hopeful, the prince becomes visibly irritated. In the world of Altharad, there are 7 clans blessed by the mythical goddess, bestowed with powers beyond human reach. The symbol of a red eye represents military honor and is passed down to the next generation through a bloodline mark. The 7 heroic families include the Ryan, the Protectors; Baldur, rulers of the demon dragons; Naga of the 100-Ring Sages; Freed of the Yellow Sword Emperor Zen; Galucidin, bringers of the Cosmic Fang Warriors; and finally, Lord Lubidin of the Sacred Sword Master. It's said that each heroic family has an entire state, and the legacy of each is unique. However, this common summoner found by the princess wields more power than all 7 heroes combined. Watching everything from her castle through a messenger crystal, Queen Kaiser of Stromheim takes notice of Akira. She wonders if, like his father, he possesses powers that could threaten the country. With more explosions in the arena, Akira's allies begin to worry that the boy will run out of mana. Even though Akira knows his strategy has been reckless, he can't detect any sign of magical power from his opponent. Since the magical attacks cancel each other out, neither side can land a blow, and somehow the hero must find a way to get closer. Unexpectedly, Carius begins to be pushed back along with his barrier. Carius believes that as long as he has the barrier, he doesn't need to worry about defense, only about exhausting his opponent. However, he starts to consider that his barrier might break before that happens. With more and more strikes, the duel continues with intensity, and everyone watches with high expectations. Maverick wonders where Akira's wild expression comes from, as even after numerous summons, a boy continues to perform incredible feats. She asks if this isn't a disadvantage for Akira, but Prol explains that magical powers consume energy, even when used defensively. Greta Maverick responds, mentioning the concept of efficiency, stating that summoning is much more exhausting. However, Prol asks her to wait a moment, confident that Maverick might be wrong. Suddenly, Carius' barrier develops a crack, silencing Maverick immediately. The audience can't believe their eyes, and Greta asks if Prol knew from the beginning that the counterattack wasn't defensive. It becomes clear that Prol was aware Akira could outlast his opponent, and at that moment, the noble's shield shatters. Carius realizes that Akira was trying to defeat him in a battle of endurance. The audience is more shocked than ever because the mana of the heroic descendant ran out first. In the end, even something as powerful as Althi broke, and Oswell admitted it made sense since the shield also consumed magical power. The shield grows stronger as exhaustion increases, but it's still far weaker than summoning techniques. At this moment, Carius looks at Akira, trying to understand what's happening. The protagonist has combined all his summons into a giant, extremely powerful weapon. Faced with this, Carius thinks about how, as a member of the Ryan family, he's not used to losing even against demons. However, not satisfied with divine beasts, Akira also summons a spear, demonstrating that he can change forms at will. Prol and Midis grow increasingly excited as the match nears its conclusion. With Carius' remaining magical power dropping to zero, Akira unleashes his attack, causing the arena to explode. The blast reaches the queen in her castle, convincing her that she needs this boy for herself. Normal warriors and swordsmen lead the vanguard, with magicians providing support. This is the basic formation, and it's common knowledge that summoners are weak in close combat. However, beyond summoning, the protagonist has offensive power that allows him to manipulate even divine beasts at will. He also has defensive power that prevents even the 7 heroes from approaching. In other words, he is equipped with both offense and defense. This is the summoner who can fight alone and is the most powerful ever to appear. With Carius on the ground and against all conventional tactics, the battle ends. Unexpectedly for the commoners, they achieve victory and immediately run to celebrate. Elisa jumps onto Akira, calling him a monster, and Alistair joins in with great joy. In response, Akira apologizes sincerely to Anthony for lying to him. However, Anthony reassures him, saying the princess also asked them to fight and that they made their own decisions. Anthony extends his hand to Akira, thanking him for the victory and the lessons learned. Akira's face softens, knowing that now they are all part of a team and realizing that he was the one who needed to learn. At that moment, a noise is heard, and upon listening closely, they realize the crowd is clapping, except for the nobles. One of the commoners shouts to Akira, saying it was incredible and that he couldn't stop trembling. He also asks Akira to keep going because he has become Stromheim's hope. In response, Akira raises his hands, demonstrating confidence to the crowd. The audience erupts with excitement, except for the prince, who is already being held accountable by the princess for their agreement. Midis informs him that she will now change the school's rules to ensure all students are taught equally. She announces that the committee will meet as soon as possible to resolve this issue. As a prince, Oswald gives his word that he won't go back on his promise and agrees to call the meeting the next day. Relieved, the princess thanks him for the quick decision and informs him that she will leave first. However, as Menace departs, the incomprehensible magical power and unconditional summoning continue to trouble the prince. He becomes certain that such a feat cannot be attributed to summoning techniques alone. Now he confesses that they have indeed found someone exceptional, but thanks to the princess, he will definitely take him for himself. Back with Metis, she's overjoyed, thinking that Akira is truly the best of the best. As he believed in her, she cried while thanking him for being such an incredible ally. However, rumors about Akira have already reached other kingdoms, and Ursula, who was once a top candidate for queen, mentioned that the name sounded familiar. Terrence feels exhausted and terrified until he turns around and sees a decomposing, agonized body. Along with several others, these bodies scream for their lord, leaving him desperate. One of them, on the verge of madness, claimed their entire body was turning transparent, while another could not tell if they were even alive. In the end, they begged their lord for help, but he could do nothing. In utter desperation, he fled as fast as he could. The prince questioned what was wrong with the boy to make him use his secret technique to escape. Then Oswald mocked the fact that Jiru Seiden, from the 7 heroes of the Cosmic Fangs, was utterly terrified. At that moment, a Mayan appeared, and with events escalating quickly, the 2 heroes of the kingdom instructed Jiru to protect Medisfina, leaving him in tears. This is the state in which the boy wakes up in his bed, still gripped by sadness. Naturally, he understood that it had been a nightmare, but he realized there was only one way out. Just then, a messenger arrived, asking if the Duke was awake, and Jiro asked what all the commotion was about so early in the morning. The old man informed him that the Malikuver expedition had been sent to the glacial forest where an outbreak was occurring. Additionally, a message had arrived requesting the Duke's assistance as a swarm of Odars had appeared. The day after the competition, Akira presented himself at the palace but felt he was receiving unnecessary attention. He knew there could only be one reason for this, as the Queen's audience had been scheduled for the previous day. Now, however, 4 sword emperors were present: the demonic Oriana Viglasul, the dark sword emperor Galaha, also known as the Forgotten, the magic sword emperor Sigrith Palaheos, and the strongest of them all, Insana Calviner of the Mayan clan. For now, Akira didn't know who these people were or why they were wearing masks, which made him suspicious. The princess, on the other hand, already knew the queen would be interested but didn't expect her to summon an audience the very next morning. Metis wondered what the queen was thinking as Queen Kaizura commanded Akira Rainford to raise his head. The queen provocatively commented that the son might even be stronger than the father and mentioned that he resembled his mother. Akira felt honored that his parents were well known, but Kaizura pointed out his willingness to fight for Metisfina. She then asked if his plan was to claim the throne of this country, which left everyone shocked, especially Metis and Ketia, who were visibly embarrassed. If that wasn't his intention, the queen said she couldn't understand why he was appearing only now. After displaying such incomprehensible abilities, she expected him not to abandon Stromheim to its problems. The nobles displayed expressions of surprise, and Akira commented that his presence would not be the reason chaos appeared in the country. At that moment, Akira realized that others didn't just view his abilities as a blessing, but also as a potential threat. Because his power was unimaginable, Akira understood that if nothing was done, they would eventually turn against him. However, the princess immediately stepped forward, saying that Akira was born and raised in this country and had no reason to endanger his homeland. She boldly declared that Akira wasn't dangerous, but was the hero capable of saving Stromheim. In response, Oswell and Ursula appeared to agree, while the queen asked if the princess wasn't interested in hearing her opinion. Metis apologized, and Kaizura asked if, as an heir, Metis was convinced that this man was loyal to the country and its interests. If that was the case, the queen stated, she would require proof and Karens. When the queen mentioned that name, the princess asked if it was the northern part of the country. The queen explained that the Duke had sent a message saying they found what they believed to be the source of the Odar outbreak on the other side of the Bananbir Mountains. Thus, it is time to unite the global alliance in a line of defense, with Oswell heading to Pennsylvania and Ursula being ordered to send an emissary to the Holy Church of the goddess Lloyd. In this context, Akira is tasked with bringing the mages from Corinth and joining the Archduke's army as an auxiliary. The queen declares that they have reached the limit of hiding the threat from the people, and if the boy is the true heir to the throne, he must be the first to visit Corinth. There, he will play a central role in the World Federation and secure victory in the war against the Odar, which has already begun. This will also clear Akira of any suspicions and make him a respected vassal of the kingdom. However, the protagonist's personal will is excluded from this sudden mission he is assigned. Intervening, Oswald comments that Metis is still a novice in the art of magic and cannot accompany Akira to Corinth. In the case of the advanced troops mission to join the global force, he believes that this role should be his. However, with a serious expression, the queen commands him to remain silent. Oswald has been accumulating defeats for some time and therefore has no right to speak. Thus, Corinth will remain under Metisfina's control and Oswald will stay in the land of magic. The queen then asks the princess if she is confident enough to prove her determination. While thinking, Metis feels troubled, as she truly wants Akira by her side to defeat the Odars. She believes everything is happening too suddenly because her response could change Akira's life forever. She remembers what he said about wanting to take over his father's shop after graduation and grows anxious. But now that the queen knows of his power, the boy cannot go against the royal will. The thought that the boy who always believed in her would now be sent to the front lines leaves Metis worried. On the other hand, Oswald does not want this to happen because it would signify the princess's victory in claiming the throne. So he tries to seize the moment by volunteering again. But to his dismay, the protagonist has no issue accepting the mission. Kneeling, Akira declares that he will protect the princess for the rest of his life and bring victory in Corinth. This declaration excites Metis and Katia, while enraging Oswell and making Ursula laugh heartily. In Akira's mind, however, he believes this is worse than blackmail, as the queen's intentions seem tied to Metis. He understands that he is being used as a guard to ensure her success. In this situation, even if he refuses, the queen would force him to comply and things would worsen if he angered her. Feeling deeply distressed, Hiro thinks that his happy life has ended and that he will never see his family again. Meanwhile, the queen laughs heartily at Akira's words as everyone awaits her pronouncement. She thinks to herself that the son of that mage is incredibly intelligent and can see through her intentions. Akira, on the other hand, thinks that Kaizura has a strong temperament that contradicts her gentle appearance. Getting straight to the point, the queen decides to offer a reward if the mission is completed. Thus, she will grant him land and the title of Baron, which his father had once abandoned. Hearing this, the prince smashes objects in his chambers, cursing the queen for ruining his plans. Oswald believes Kazera is trying to get rid of him simply because he lost a competition. However, he refuses to give up so easily and turns to Calvina. For some reason, the way she looks at him through her mask irritates him immensely. The girl removes her mask, and the prince hurls a goblet at her face. He then strikes her several times, shouting for her to get lost. Moreover, he yells that she has no right to call herself a hero and asks how long she will live in that delusion. Without reacting, Calvina begins to bleed and Oswald grabs her by the neck, blaming her and the Mayans for everything. From now on, the prince commands her to report every move of the queen. After insulting her as a filthy wench, she accepts his orders, declaring herself to be Oswald's servant. Elsewhere in the castle, the princess does not seem very happy. Keisha expresses her joy for Medes, as she will go to Corinne's with Akira, but the princess asks to be left alone. In this case, the captain asks why she seems so upset, and the princess explains that because of her selfishness, it felt as though the boy was forced to accept. Medes wanted to make the request as a friend, not as a superior, so Katya decides to talk to Akira about how he feels regarding this. And she asks the princess to ask him directly, which makes Medes very embarrassed since the hero is already there. Startled, she falls off the bed and hits her head on the floor, so Katya says she'll leave the two to talk more privately. Thus, only the protagonist and the princess remain in the room. Before saying anything, Medes shouts that she knows everything is her fault. Even when they were young, she put him in danger because of her selfishness, and now it's happening again. However, she promises that this time things will be different and that she will protect Akira and Corinne's, even if it costs her life to become queen of this country. In response, the hero says that if he survives at the expense of the princess, he will probably be sentenced to death. At this, Medes doesn't know what to do anymore. Thus, the protagonist says he's only joking and that she doesn't need to feel bad because the welfare of the country is at stake. The truth is, the boy should have been in the academy since childhood, but Medes kept it a secret. For that, he thought she had been selfish, but the competition helped him realize what is right. This is because kids his age were risking their lives to help others, and Akira felt ashamed watching them. Therefore, now that he has the chance to help these people, Akira wants to repay them. And as he said before, Akira confesses that he wants to stand beside his dear Medes, because she is his best friend and the person he respects most from the bottom of his heart. Because of this, Akira asks the princess to keep her head held high and not show weakness. However, Medes only responds that she hadn't realized how much the protagonist had grown. Then she pulls him close with great happiness, commenting that Akira is now taller than she is. On his next day at the academy, as the protagonist walks by, people comment about the newest genius Invoker. They also mention rumors that the queen is interested in the boy because of his performance. Unfortunately, when he meets his friends, the first thing the hero announces is that he'll be leaving for Corinne's. Even Pranny is at the table, and she's startled because the northern side is the main battlefield in the Obdar War. Moreover, the region is very cold, making it unsurprising that there's a reward involved. To explain, the hero says that because he hadn't revealed his powers until now, he's been ordered to go to Corinne's with Medes as a way to atone for his crimes. Even so, it was all very sudden, and Anthony had been planning to learn a lot from Akira. However, the hero doesn't believe the boy is being serious because everyone there has talent and passions, and the professors are better than him at teaching. Thus, Elisa asks if it's just a matter of different levels, but the hero also denies this. This is because he, too, doesn't know enough about magic and wants to learn from his friends. Changing the subject, Elisa asks why Pranny is in the group of commoners, and she tries to change the topic. Moreover, she starts talking about how everyone is equal at the academy, which sounds quite hypocritical. Either way, the girl says that Master Akira fought to prove this, and the hero feels a bit embarrassed. Still, some people think this way of thinking from Pranny is admirable. These include Miss Keisha and Prold, who suddenly appear there. Prold, for her part, says that if all nobles were like Pranny, things would be much easier. Then the girl says they shouldn't cling to status while Akira is away and should instead focus on working together. Katya, however, apologizes for interrupting and asks for a minute with Akira. This is because someone is here who wants to talk to him. So the hero gets up, already apologizing for leaving his colleagues for a while. Preparations for the journey begin today, but Akira promises he'll return once his mission is completed. However, before he leaves, Anthony asks the protagonist to wait, and when he gets his attention, he thanks him for fighting alongside them. Moreover, the boy asks the protagonist to return safely because he'll be waiting for him in his best condition. But at this moment, the others interrupt Anthony, saying they object. Their objection is that the boy isn't the only one waiting, and they all promise to do their best to grow stronger. Thus, the hero's friends tell him not to worry about anything and to keep moving forward. Pearl starts laughing uncontrollably because now that it's been mentioned, she realizes she'll have to do her part. Initially, she didn't want to work much, but with all this determination, she declares that she'll push her students hard, and obviously, the nobility won't be an exception. Later at the castle, Diva opens her arms emotionally and embraces her son after such a long time. Akira explains that the castle messenger allowed her to see him before he departs. Continuing, his mother comments that he's lost weight, but he reassures her that he's fine while looking at Arya and asking about his father. In response, the maid explains that he couldn't come due to a meeting, Changing the subject, Diva asks about this sudden trip. She mentions that the destination is very cold and filled with monsters, but the hero says it's just normal training that all students undergo. Since this kind of outdoor lesson is important, Diva understands. Knowing that Metis and Katya will accompany him, Diva asks them to take care of her son. Before leaving, she gives a signal to the maid instructing her to bring everything out. This reveals dish after dish of food that Diva prepared for her son, leaving Katya astonished and Akira very excited. Later, Katya wanders through the castle, feeling quite hungry. She remembers the hero's feast and finds it a bit strange that such a powerful boy acts like a child around his mother. She reflects on how Akira balanced moments of maturity with moments of peacefulness. So far, Akira has defeated divine beasts and a hero from one of the 7 heroic families. However, it crosses Katya's mind that Akira is only 15 years old, something she hadn't really considered. Perhaps she realizes he is still just a child who misses his mother's affection. Later, while Diva is sleeping, the protagonist enjoys the view from the balcony and feels guilty for lying to his mother again. To the hero's surprise, Arius suddenly appears, saying that if he doesn't want to go, he doesn't have to. Among the 3 exalted goddesses, Madeline Dendel and Freya Ruin Mariah, in the name of the 3rd Vargnabar Negasus, Queen Kaizera bestows all her blessings upon Metis. Because of this, she expects the Princess of Stromheim to return victorious and proud. With confidence, Metaskina responds that she will accept this great command. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.